Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host Evan Tiga. With me, like always, is Noah Bailey. So today we are going to be playing a little game to try to determine what we believe is the greatest ever superhero show. This is a mix of Marvel, DC, some other miscellaneous stuff, live action and animation. So yeah, real quick, I'm just going to run down all the different options here, and then we'll get right into the actual game. First, in the DC animated category, we have Batman the Animated Series, The Batman, Batman Brave and the Bold, Superman the Animated Series, My Adventure with Superman, Justice League Unlimited, Young Justice, which Justice League Unlimited, that is Justice League and Unlimited together. Like, I feel weird to break them into two, so just that's all that.
Yeah.
Teen Titans, Static Shock. Now for the Marvel animated, we have Spider-Man the Animated Series, Spectacular Spider-Man, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is a more recent contender, but I think deserves to be on here. X-Men the Animated Series, X-Men 97, a show I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot of good things about. I'm sure we'll get to later. X-Men Evolution, Wolverine and the X-Men, the Superhero Squad show, which was a hard pick right there. I love that show. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And now for the live action superhero stuff, we have Arrow, The Flash, Smallville, Superman and Lois, Daredevil, Luke Cage, WandaVision, Loki, Agatha All Along. And then for the miscellaneous and just other stuff I didn't think about until later, we have Invincible, The Boys, Word Girl, Creature Commandos, The Penguin, Batman 66, Batman Beyond, Legion of Superheroes, and The Harley Quinn Show. Okay, so how this game is going to work is we're going to take turns eliminating these, whether, as hard as that'll be, especially towards the end. We each have two different saves. So if, let's say, X-Men 97 as my third pick, that should go a lot further. Noah can decide he wants that to stay a little bit longer, and then he can use one of his two saves, and then it'll take two turns after I tried to pick it before it can then be on the chopping block again. All right. You want to get us started?
I do. And with my first pick, I am going to pick Word Girl because
Okay.
I love the show as a kid. I think it's very nicely done. I think it's a good way to do an educational show. But it's PBS. It's only so compelling. It is. I like the idea that, there are some moments that are really funny actually watching this show. I remember there was one time where I think Word Girl was like trying to watch a marathon of her favorite show. And she's like, yeah, no commercials for the next 3 hours. So she goes on TV and she's like, hey, so if any of it, I'm going to be watching TV for a couple hours. So try not to do any crime. And if any villains are thinking about messing stuff up, she just takes the steel beam and just bends it entirely. And then it cuts to one of the villains who's about to go out the door, and he just immediately closes the door and sits back down.
That's really good.
Dude, no, I mean, I fell out of my chair laughing. Like, that was one of the funniest jokes. Like, it says so much, but it's just because really, she's basically Superman. She can fly, super strength, all the things. So it's pretty. It's definitely more entertaining than one would think a random PBS show would be. But it's I don't think it's among these type of shows in general.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to get very far. That was one I just thought about and just put on there because I thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
It definitely is way better than you have any reason of thinking it would be.
Right.
Like, the voice acting they got is just every single character is voiced by someone incredibly famous. The storyline, despite every episode revolving around one or two specific words or some kind of educational framework, it still tells a very compelling story with an overarching narrative. It's pretty impressive, especially for a PBS show. But yeah, I don't know if I were to watch it now if it would be as compelling to me, as an adult. But yeah, especially for the time I watched it, it was very solid. But it can go.
Yeah, it's no, it is again very good for what it is, but I'm not about to be like it's like iconic or anything. But there's definitely some great moments that I love.
Yeah. Okay. So full disclosure, there are some of these on here I haven't seen or haven't seen a lot of.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm gonna save those for a little bit later because my next pick will be the Superhero Squad show.
I thought you said you love that show.
Yes, I love that show. However, it's not great. Like it's definitely more geared towards children. It definitely
Yeah.
the art style is interesting. It's not bad, but it's definitely a choice. It was, I believe, that was actually my first introduction to a lot of those Marvel characters because I grew up with mostly DC stuff, and that show was the first one I saw that actually had a lot of more unknown Marvel characters. Like I didn't know who Miss Marvel was. I didn't know even like when the show came out like '07, I didn't like really know who Wolverine was. I didn't really know who Iron Man was. So there were certain characters here and there that like I maybe knew the name of, but I didn't like really know what they did. Uh, so this show, is a pretty solid introduction to a lot of those different characters. Um, Villains, especially like MODOK and Doctor Doom, and even like Thanos towards the end, like they did it in a more kid friendly way, but it still you still got the gist of those villains, and I think like if you have a you know preteen child who wants to get into Marvel, this isn't a bad way to get them into it.
Yeah,
But
that's fair. I mean, honestly, I remember this show mostly. My nephews loved to watch it, and like the intro was just very in your face.
yes,
It was
it's a very
very
fun
like
intro. Yes.
right, and I was just kind of like, wow, the show is like not wasting any time getting your attention.
Mm,
But yeah, I never actually watched any of it, so I can't really speak to the quality of it. But
mm,
from what I've heard, there are other like Marvel Avenger like shows that are have much higher stories.
yeah.
So not a bad pick though.
Mm, all right.
Okay,
Okay.
my pick again, and this one I'm gonna pick this one because my personal feelings about this show, even though it's one of the like it's like the OG in a sense, I really don't care for like the old Batmans. Like
Okay.
I understand like again I have all the respect in the world for the late Adam West and like I get that like this is like you know in a lot of ways the original Batman, but I guess for me it's just one, it's not Batman as we understand him or as I understand him in any other concept. I mean,
Mm,
it's kind of just I mean, Batman's more of a celebrity than like a hero. He's kind of like I mean, he's hosting golf tournaments and like, oh yeah, Batman and it's like all this weird stuff. He's like doing dance competitions and like surfing and I'm just kind of like
mm,
this is weird, man. Like, it feels
yeah.
very just not what I understand Batman to be and what I really love about Batman. It kind of just is a show with a guy. Which like I get it, but like for me, it's really something I just don't care for at all.
Okay. It
So
was
I mean that's my
definitely the Batman show for that time period for a very
yes.
different time in history. A lot of people argue that that show actually kind of saved Batman as a character because up to that point, Batman was a lot darker, and his comics in general were not didn't have this broad appeal. And then this show came out and made him a little goofier and made him just
Hmm.
feel more relevant to the times and the comics. Well, comics just in general kind of shifted towards that. I think that's kind of the start of the Silver Age where things got a little more goofy and got a little more ridiculous, which I'm all for. But especially looking back at it now, how much Batman has evolved even since then. I could see, even for just how even though the show is, as iconic as it is, how inspirational to other forms of media that is, like Mermaid Man, Barnacle Boy from SpongeBob, just
Hmm.
like the onomatopoeia on the screen whenever someone gets punched and that kind of thing. Like it, it's also just a very, very funny show and uses the fact that, like one of my all-time favorite beats from that show is like Batman talking to himself on the phone, like between Batman, like there's a scene where Commissioner Gordon is like talking to Batman. He's like, I have Bruce Wayne on the other line. Can you talk to him about this? So he has to like talk to himself and like switching his voice back and forth, like to coordinate something to like lure a villain out or whatever. So that was done very well, and yeah, like
Does he change his voice? I feel like it's the same
slightly,
voice.
like not really, but just like a little. Like I guarantee, if Commissioner Gordon in that show had any sense, he would have been
Right.
able to figure it out. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, like that Joker, I think is just a very even now. I think that's a very good interpretation of that character. Like, yeah, he's extremely goofy, but his plans were still like, if they succeeded, would have been pretty devastating. Um, yeah, like I'm not gonna save it or anything, but I personally have a soft spot for that
Okay.
era of Batman. But yeah,
That's
I
fair.
don't blame you for not like having as much reverence for it.
That's fair. Okay. Cool. All right. Your pick.
Okay, so my next pick will be I think so. I've never seen any of X Men and the Wolverine. I've seen a little bit of X Men
Hmm.
Evolution, seen a little bit of X Men animated series. I have plans to watch X Men '97 at some point soon, but
Right.
Wolverine and the X Men, I have no
That's fair.
like. Even just seeing like screenshots of it, I usually think it is Evolution. I feel like they have at least similar art styles. Is that wrong?
I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but it's closer to that than like the animated series or anything.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna pick Wolverine and the X Men. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I mean it's a good show. It does a good job of kind of like basically it kind of knows that like by now there's been a couple X-Men shows out, so you kind of get the regular form. So it kind of not flips it on its head, but it's kind of like it's almost like the X-Men kind of were established, got disbanded, and now Wolverine's trying to like essentially bring them back together,
Hmm.
which is kind of more why Wolverine. It's more Wolverine's the leader than like the typical Cyclops or like Professor Xavier or anything. So it's
Hmm.
pretty. It's an interesting take on that. And I mean, it does things well. I mean, characters like Emma Frost are kind of more prominent than in other versions and things like that. So it does a good job of exploring more characters. It didn't get far into my understanding. I believe it was canceled after just one season,
Hmm.
so it didn't get as much time. But it was definitely building towards something good. But I think it just because of whatever reason just didn't get the chance to flourish as much as it could have.
Right.
But I think for give it if it had been given more time, and it was I mean it was doing a good job, and like the action's pretty interesting, and like the characters do a really good job working off each other. Like there's like this really like usually like with Cyclops and Wolverine, there's this really like there's always the rivalry, but here it's more like it's just like a after the fact thing because like Jean's gone, and it's like they're both angry about it. It's done very well, and it definitely feels like it's taking it more seriously than other shows have before, but it's not to the point where it's like super like violent gory or anything like that. I mean it's
Hmm.
still a kids show, but it's definitely treating the kids a little more, giving them a little more respect.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That. I mean, I like the idea of specific X Men shows focusing more on one character while having an ensemble cast around them. Um, that's something they try to do with that terrible movie, but that was supposed to be start of an anthology. Yet
Oh
I don't know.
man.
I just feel like that was not done well. But something like this, I think, could have. it could have even been a thing where it's like the show is called Wolverine and the X-Men, and then future seasons are called Cyclops and the X-Men. Storm and the X-Men, like that. I feel like that
Yeah,
kind of
kind of
thing
like
could have been
yeah,
interesting, but
yeah, kind of like showing each person's perspective with the team, kind of thing.
yeah.
That would have actually been awesome. Actually, that's a really cool idea for like any superhero team. Kind of like, yeah, kind of like how like the Teen Titans kind of had up like a main like character season
Yeah.
each, kind of. So like, yeah, that's a good idea actually.
Mm, yeah. But
Okay, solid choice. Okay, okay. My next pick. Hmm. Mm, I don't want to pick this yet. I'm not sure, but I'm also like, so okay. So I want to ask, like,
mhm.
have you seen Superman and Lois at all?
No, you
Right?
saw the last season, so I
Yeah, I've
put it
seen
on
like
there.
I did not watch every single episode, but I've seen a lot of episodes. I saw almost all the last season. Like
Mhm.
it is one of those shows that it does a really good job in certain moments, but the overall show in typical CW fashion is just kind of a lot of stuff happening
Mm,
that doesn't really matter.
right.
Like it's like you'll have a whole season and like it's not like little Flash and Arrow used to be where it was like 20 something episodes each season. It's not that long, but it's like double digit episodes, and it's like
Mm,
maybe three things per episode will actually matter, and the rest of the like 40 something minutes is kind of just regular stuff happening, which sometimes can be interesting. We just like your characters doing stuff, but it still feels like a lot of just kind of like fluff content. Or,
mm,
oh, this character for this episode is just going to be uncharacteristically angry because plot, or this character is going to just, kind of they have to do things to fill stuff, which I like the show idea. I love the idea of how this show really understands Superman,
mhm.
especially this was a couple years back when it first came out, and like right off the bat it was really good about like, yeah, Superman is this guy who just he's a regular guy, he just has these powers, he wants to help people, he doesn't think he's better than anybody, he's just a really chill guy, and I like how he's just like the most dad guy ever. He just seems
Mm,
like your dad picking you up from soccer practice, but also he can lift a building. So it's
right.
just very it's done very well, and I think it does a good job with even the act. Even though the action scenes aren't like super prominent, when they are done, they try their best to lean into things like that look good. I think they do a good job of kind of like even with super speed, he kind of can just be play. It's almost like it's not teleportation, but it's not just like they do the thing where they do like the like with Flash, where they just do the cannons and he's just gone and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which I think is fine because again it's Superman. But I think while there are some really, really strong that Superman moments, I
Mm.
think outside of those, I think the show as a whole is not really that interesting.
It's still a CW show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Essentially, yeah. And I mean and I think it is good that they stopped it now before it just really fell. But I mean like after the first season or two, there's a few like I mean, there's some moments here and there that are really interesting and they're really good. But I think if we're grading the show as a whole, it's not really. I don't know. It's okay. And it's just not
Mhm.
that interesting. Like there are like I would watch an episode for maybe a 5 minutes and part that's really good, and the rest of the episode I don't really care about.
Right.
And that was a pretty common thing.
Mm.
But
Okay.
overall, like I mean, again, could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, there's one show on here that I'm gonna feel a little bad about getting rid of at this point, but it's one that I know is not gonna get super far, and it's like after I get rid of this, I'll feel a little better about taking down some other stuff. I'm gonna
Okay.
go ahead and say Creature Commandos.
Really? Okay. Okay.
I
Interesting.
I really liked this show. I think Like, all of the characters I thought were written very well. Um, I like the situation the squad was put into. Two little things, like especially over time, that have kind of soured on a little bit is I really, really do not like how it ended. I feel like the ending felt very rushed because we had to still spend that last episode on, or half of that episode on flashback of a character who would just die immediately after a flashback was over. We only had like 8 minutes of screen time for the present stuff, and I felt like because of that, they just kind of had to wrap up. Like, oh, she figures out that she's actually the bad guy. Boom, dead. Okay, like it just that was a little. I don't know. I felt just a little rushed. We just had one more episode. 7 episodes, I always thought was a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, I thought for sure it would be 8. 7 episodes having one flashback episode per character, then having one final episode to really complete the story. That just kind of didn't happen. Also, I think I kind of have soured on the fact that they pitched this team as being the worst of the worst, expendable, just horrible people, but actually it turns out that every single one of them is actually not that bad of a person. Like, Dr. Phosphorus is kind of the worst, but even then he
completely justified.
Yeah, even he was justified. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm okay with humanizing the robot. That I think that's fun. Or actually Nina, who doesn't even want to be here, she's just misunderstood. Or even Weasel, but having all of them collectively being, oh, actually they're just heroes. This seems a little weird to me.
It definitely subverts your expectations, yeah, because you're expecting them to be these, like, especially when it's being, a not Suicide Squad, and then it's like, oh no, they're really not the Suicide Squad. I mean, yeah, they're messed up people, but that's not for their own, it's for their own reasons. They're not just monsters. I mean, yeah. Figuratively, not just monsters, but yeah, I can see that kind of. Yeah, I mean, I personally like it a lot. I'm not gonna lie. So I am gonna use a save this early because I just
wow.
well, it's like I don't end up using saves often. I realize until we're at the very end, and I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna just do it just once, just because, like, you get 2, and if you don't use them, you don't use them. So
fair enough.
I feel like I feel like there are other shows I feel like I feel better about. Like, I'm not gonna save it like twice, obviously, but it's like I feel like this early, I'm kind of like
yeah, like
I don't know if I don't know if I'll let that one slide.
But
that's
fair.
Your criticisms are valid, but I think the show's written well enough that it deserves a little more grace.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you're gonna regret that because I got rid of that one because next I'm planning on doing ones that you might like even more. I'm not exactly sure.
I guess we'll find out.
Again, I do actually really like Creature Commandos. It just didn't live up to the expectations I was hoping for from James Gunn's first DC project. It was still good, just not. It just didn't end as strongly as I was hoping it would. But still, like, it didn't make me think like, oh no, Superman's in trouble. No, like I just felt it could have been better. So
that's fair. I guess that's fair. But yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel. But yeah, I mean, I think that's honest. Like, especially now that we've had some time to kind of like sit and think about, like, okay, that ending did feel kind of rushed now that I think about it. But for me, the writing and the character, first of all, the character dialogue was amazing. Like, I think that was some of the best written, just like, because it was like, even though this is a completely unrealistic situation, everyone said exactly what any real person would say in that situation.
Yeah.
They're like, this is, you know what I mean? They're just like, this is insane. Like, this, like, that's exactly how that would go. And I think that really, especially bringing that while keeping everyone in character and keeping everything still feel like, not in it. Like, none of the jokes felt like they were necessarily winking at the camera, but it was definitely funny stuff that, like, when you think about it, you're like, that's hilarious. Like, I think it did a really good job of being funny without being like, I don't know, trying too hard to be funny.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
But anyway.
Your turn.
Okay. So I have never loved this series personally, just because I feel like it was just trying to do something that was already done, but worse. I I don't like Legion of Superheroes that much. And
Really?
my reason I
Yeah.
don't. I my thing with the whole Legion of Superheroes is like the only parts that I really ever cared about were any of the parts that had Superman in it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like I get he's a main character, but it's like when you're trying to like it's hard to care about a lot of these characters because one, they're either just like, oh, you're this character but slightly different, or you're just kind of I know they're all real characters, I understand that. But
Mm.
it's kind of just like I don't know. It just didn't grab me like other shows do. It kind of just felt like this was the net. Because I mean, when after seeing things like Justice League Unlimited and Teen Titans and
Mm.
like all these shows that take lesser known characters and make them more common, and then this show like, and granted, I understand the Legion of Superheroes is its own thing, but it's like it feels like you're taking a lot of characters and but you're kind of trying to make them seem close enough to characters you know so it's
Mm.
okay, but it's kind of like I feel like that's not why I shouldn't like a character because they remind me of a different character. I think I should like the character because of themselves,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, I just that's kind of how I feel about it.
Mm.
I never really just could get into it personally.
Okay. It's definitely the show on here that I would want to rewatch the most because I loved that show as a kid, but I haven't been able to rewatch it since it came out because it's nowhere for free
Yeah,
online.
so weird.
Yeah, like I remember, I remember really liking the characters. I think that was the first like Superman show that I watched because I didn't really watch Justice League like that growing up, but I really watched Legion of Superheroes. Um, I remember, at least not disliking most of the characters. I remember season two did that thing where it got a little like almost every decision they made like creatively was seemingly only done just to make the show seem darker because
Mhm.
like season two they have this new like clone of Superman who's a little like more
Yes.
aggressive.
Superman,
Something happened
yes.
that they had to like either time travel or hop or to go somewhere, and one of the, like that girl that could split into like three. One of those triplets
Mhm.
got left behind, so now they can't really use their powers anymore because there's only two of them.
Mhm.
Um, there's a couple other little things like that that kind of made it feel less fun to watch, but I still didn't, dislike it. And then it got canceled. But yeah, I wouldn't, you know, if it's eventually somewhere that I have, or for even a pretty reasonable price, I wouldn't mind trying to watch it again. But I don't, I don't feel strongly enough about it to save it. So
That's
especially since
fair.
I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely one of those shows that, like, I think I watched it when I was old, not older, but like, not like I wasn't watching it as it came out. I kind of watched it. Yeah, I think it was like reruns years later, and I
Mm,
guess I was just kind of like, maybe that just, maybe I missed the target, like when I was like at peak time to like it, but
right.
I don't know. I think it just, for me, it just kind of felt like they were trying to do stuff like other shows had done well, less well. And I guess for me, that just makes it like, well, that's not great personally. But that's just my opinion, obviously.
All right. So my turn. I'm really curious how you're going to react to this.
Oh.
I want to go ahead and get rid of Arrow.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay,
That's fine.
go on.
Yeah, no. Now, see, and my reasoning for saying that is because when you really look back on it, there's 8 seasons of Arrow,
Yeah.
and there are maybe 3 seasons that are like worth watching all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, because the first 2 seasons, and in my opinion, the fifth season are the strongest, and the other seasons are anywhere from not that great to terrible.
Mm.
So it kind of just depends because the show has, again, the main CW problem where it starts off, the initial plot thing starts off really strong that you planned for, and then your show keeps getting greenlit and you run out of ideas that when you originally started. So now you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks,
Mhm.
and a lot of it doesn't,
Right.
especially when you have to do 23 episodes per season. So a lot of those episodes are just like writing characters, like we said earlier, like writing characters unlike their characters because we need this conflict to last a few episodes so we can make a big redemption moment, and then immediately doing it again the next season. And then it's
Hmm.
like, what did we not learn from, like, in universe 6 months ago? So it's kind of like that's
Yeah.
doing a lot. And yeah, I just don't, again, like Arrow, I really love what they did with Deathstroke. I think that was done great. I think I really like the whole, like, Malcolm Merlin Dark Archer part, and also just him being like, the vigilante. But it felt like the more he came into the light, because even like I kind of like the stuff they were leading up to the League of Shadows and like Ra's al Ghul and everything, but then it's like you kind of reach that point of like everyone's, like, you kind of go too high too fast, and now it's
Hmm.
like anyone who's not Ra's al Ghul now should not be a problem
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And then it's like we still got 5 seasons to go, and it's kind of like I find it hard for you to struggle with just some, like, like, okay, some guys have powers, that's going to be an issue for anybody, but it's like
Mm.
that's just a guy, and you beat Ra's al Ghul like actually in a fight, so I'm like, eh. And then we have like character, like, for example, like Laurel kind of like just gets really good out of nowhere. It's just like, yeah, like at the start of the season you couldn't beat a mugger, and now at the end of the season you're fighting literal like League of Assassin people. And I'm like, no, like that's not, no amount of training can prepare you for that level. Like, these people have been doing this their entire lives. That makes
Right.
no sense. Like, I don't care how much natural talent you have, you're not just gonna be on the highest level possible that fast. It just doesn't make sense. And yeah, it's just like, I don't want to say power scaling inconsistencies, but it's just kind of like, how could you accomplish this and then this is like an entire struggle? Like,
Mm.
I don't know. It was stuff like that, and like trying to, and like very much not knowing where to go with how to write characters, because like, oh, we want to make sure that this popular character gets more of this, but then when doing so we've kind of written ourselves in a hole and we don't know what to do, so we're going to try to run around this, so we're going to, like, oh, we're going to make this big thing where Felicity gets paralyzed until she just isn't,
Hmm.
because science. But like, we're not gonna, like, the greatest modern miracle ever is just not gonna be a thing, and we're just gonna forget about it. And it's just kind of like, you're telling me you can cure somebody from being paralyzed and you're not like, that's just it, like, you're just like, okay, cool,
Sure.
like that's the great, like that's like finding the cure to cancer and just being like, okay, I'm just gonna use it on my one friend. Like, what?
Hmm.
But I don't know. All that to say, a lot, the show has some great moments, and I do think it did a lot for live action hero stuff in general, not just like the CW show. I think a lot of shows, like, I mean, even like other shows on this list, like I feel like they benefit from some things that Arrow did first
Hmm.
really well. Like, I feel like Daredevil, like I feel like a lot of things that work in Arrow, like Daredevil, obviously I think does better, but
Oh.
I think Daredevil's not really, what I mean? I feel like Daredevil happens as well as it does because you're like, okay, this is what they did. Now let's do
Mm.
it better. And
Right.
then, yeah, which, yeah, it works. But yeah, I think Arrow definitely deserves its flowers and stuff because it's kind of a pioneer for that kind of show.
Mm. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is
sorry, that was a lot.
no, but that's all completely valid. I do I do find it very funny that there's at least two different shows on here that both of them, if you're just watching them, you kind of get this sense that the creators of the show really, really wanted to make a Batman show, but they didn't
Yes.
have they didn't have the rights to Batman, so they did what they could and just kind of, you know, use the pieces they could, or even in Arrow's case, stole a lot of Batman's pieces,
Yes.
like Ra's al Ghul, Deathstroke, Felicity in a wheelchair, Oracle. Okay,
Yeah,
Deadshot. Like,
right.
there's a bunch of different villains that are Batman villains that are just they're Green Arrow villains now. Okay, um, they're they're just gonna make him a super rich vigilante who just wants justice for his city, despite Green Arrow being also being a Robin Hood type allegory type thing. Um,
Yeah.
and like the other show I'm kind of getting at is Daredevil. I think that show does the like Batman esque thing a lot better. Him hiding in the shadow, just disappearing, like using his surroundings and shadows is a lot better. Um, I just think, especially with Arrow being explicitly set in the DC universe, it
Hmm.
you know him having most of his rogues gallery just be Batman characters feels weird.
Yeah, and like not even apologetic about it either. Like I mean, like by the I mean, because it's literally like they start with like Malcolm Merlin and stuff like that, but like yeah, they start. I mean, they really just rage because it's like all of the League of Assassins. And it's not even just race. I mean, they eventually they bring Talia in and
Oh
stuff
man,
like
okay.
that, which is like because like they like it is weird because they originally had not Talia and Nissa. And then they were like, okay, now we're just gonna do Talia again. It's just kind of like, okay, now why would you do that? And then they eventually do kind of get the rights for Batman. So now they make like allusions to Batman and like that.
Mhm.
Oh, Bruce Wayne is this and stuff like that. And it's like, I feel like at this point,
Okay.
and again, especially like the whole like Overwatch Oracle thing where it's like, oh yeah, you're clearly supposed to be this. And like, yeah, it's really like I understand like you had to do what you were given, and obviously there are similarities to Green Arrow and Batman, even both rich vigilantes that went through some things to
Mhm.
become the heroes they are. But I think just straight up writing a Batman show without you know him being Batman is kind of like, especially when they don't call him Green Arrow to like 4 seasons in.
Yeah, just call him the Arrow or whatever.
Yeah, he's which I get the show's called Arrow. I get it, but it's like yeah, he's like the Arrow, the Hood, the Vigilante. Like it's
Mm,
very like like it feels like they don't want him to like they don't want him to be the character he is,
yeah,
which I kind of get it, but I don't.
it's just weird. Like I don't know that many Green Arrow villains off the top of my head, but I do know that this
Really.
character's been around for 60 years or whatever. Like, he's been around for a while. He has his own stuff going for him, but they to
Yeah.
just make him Batman.
Well, and it's interesting because like they do use some Green Arrow villains, but they don't use them for nearly as long as like the other ones because like it's not as because like I mean they had Count Vertigo in there who you would think would be like
Yeah,
a
his main.
big one, but it's kind of like he's kind of like peppered in the first and second season, and then you kind of just don't hear about him again.
Mm,
Whereas, like, yeah, Deathstroke's like probably in the most episodes, probably,
yeah.
where it's just kind of like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Deathstroke's always a win, but it's like, especially if he played very well, but it's also like, it doesn't really work,
Mm,
I guess. But again, for what they had, what they were given, and what they accomplished, I think they did a really good job. I just think for me, the biggest issue was like, when you're forcing yourself like that show could have been 10 episodes a season easily,
mm,
and it would be the same show essentially. I mean they're
right.
just forcing a lot because I mean he even had this like it was like a relationship with the Huntress and like all like it's like all these Batman characters or Batman adjacent characters that you're just kind of like throwing at. Yeah, I don't know, it got a little old pretty quickly, but overall not bad.
Yeah. All right. So that's my pick. Now your turn.
Yes. Man, all that time I did not think about what I was going to pick next. I'm just kidding. Oh man. Hmm. I like that. I feel like I don't know. I feel this is gonna be like because we've been talking about Arrow. It kind of makes me feel like I'm talking about the Flash also, and it
Yeah,
kind
that's
of have
fair.
this. I have the same issues with the
Hmm.
Flash that I do have with Arrow because I mean they were right after each other. So I think I'm going Flash,
Yeah.
and so again, like we said before, like kind of the main CW problem is your first season or two, you've got plans, you've written it out, you know what you're doing, and you really nail the story. The character writing
Hmm.
is good, it makes sense. There are some episodes that are kind of just okay, that's fine, I guess. But for the most part, you're building towards something and then you wrap it up well. I like, and especially with the Flash, I like how they don't wait till the last episode of a season to make like the big reveal. Like it's a few episodes in
Hmm.
where it's like, you know what we've known all along. So we have time to really relish in that. It's not just, oh hey, in the next 20 minutes you're going to find out who the bad guy is and all this stuff and we're going to fight. It's
Hmm.
like, hey, I've known for like 4 episodes now. We just have to take that. I think they do an amazing job in that first season just building up the Reverse Flash because like it's just so satisfying watching him and like they're so it's done really well. The character writing's really good. You can just tell he's like, he's just so sinister. Like it's so he's just a guy in a wheelchair, but he's so sinister about it. He like
Hmm.
pops up like he like sneaks up on people and people are like, oh, I didn't see you back there. I'm like, wow, that's insane. You know what I mean? Like
Uh,
it's like really, but no, I think they do it really well. But again, after that first like 2 seasons, because really for me, the whole Savitar thing is when it was like, oh, really, we're doing like, come on, like that doesn't make any sense. Like,
it's it's not just Savitar. That I think, yes, Savitar is definitely especially for the first 3 seasons, he's the weakest of like the
oh yeah,
speedster villains. Even though theoretically he should be the most compelling since he is a future clone thing of Barry, so that
remnant,
you'd
yeah,
think that that would be bigger, but whatever. It's also the fact that the end of season 2, he does a flashpoint, and then beginning of season 3, you have one episode to
one
wrap up
episode,
Flashpoint.
which is so which is so annoying because you have so many episodes to work with. You had 23 episodes to work with for this season, and you only want to use one
Hmm.
for Flashpoint when you could use so many. I mean, you could literally do 10 episodes, if not more. I mean, you could have done a whole season of Flashpoint if you wanted.
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing that I feel. Considering that Legend of Tomorrow was was happening, like it was, I think maybe on a second season by that point. Um, you easily could have had like a crossover episode with Legend of Tomorrow to in order to fix it or to interact with Flashpoint at all. You could have had at least half a season of Flash season 3 just be him in the Flashpoint universe, just figuring out what is going on, and things just dramatically getting worse. But instead, if I remember correctly, the thing that makes him go back and fix it is like one of his friends gets shot or something. It's like, yeah, it's a big deal to him, but it's not like the world is literally getting nuked like it is in the original story, or it's not like giant waves and earthquakes. It's everything is just going absolutely terribly for everybody on the planet. It's just like a couple of things are different, and then one of my friends died, so I got to go fix everything. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel you should have raised the stakes a little higher. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like the rest of season 3, I think is watchable. It's not my favorite, but it's like is my least favorite of the first 3 seasons. But it's tolerable. Like I got through it fine enough. Season
Yeah.
4, it fell off hard. The
Fell
Thinker was
off.
not a compelling villain in the slightest.
And it was so interesting because like it's hyped up as like we've been like, oh, we're so tired of having a speedster villain for 3 seasons in a row. And it's like, okay, like not a speedster, but has literally every other power
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, I don't think that helps. That kind of defeats the purpose, especially like it's just weird because like you just I don't know, it just didn't make a lot of sense. Which I like something like I like the addition of Ralph actually, which I did not think I was going to at all at first, but he
Mm.
grew on me pretty quickly. Which pardon the pun, but
Yeah.
so it's kind of like so it's like okay, that was weird, but then it's like oh, but also yeah, the Thinker's just not that compelling of a
No.
villain. I think it's really annoying how they set him up as like, oh, I'm too smart, I can't be outsmarted, and then of course, like he gets it. Like I don't know, the show does this weird thing, especially with Barry, where it's like, I am too fast, or I am too strong, or too smart, and then you just like aren't.
Hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, because plot, we need you to get nerfed just at the last moment, and it's kind of like, well, that's boring. It's like nothing that was previously established really helps stop anyone. It's just like Barry. It's like, oh, I can't. I'm not fast enough. It's like, but
Yeah, you
Barry,
are.
you're the main character. That's right. I am the main character. Is fast enough, and it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay,
Like
like it.
how.
It worked more when he didn't understand his powers and he was still learning in the first season. But by
Hmm.
like season 3, you know what you can do.
Yes. And it's also just kind of disrespectful how they handled a lot of aspects of that season because, you know, there were so many times in the first 3 seasons that Barry is either doing everything he can to build up his powers and get faster in order to outpace the bad guy, and or trained Wally in order to be faster than him in order to, eventually save the day at the end. So by the end of season 3, it is established that Wally is faster than Barry. So then whatever happened at the end of season 3, something about Barry having to like go into the Speed Force to power some nonsense. So then because of that, like the first episode of season 4 is just this big samurai guy in a suit of armor, and Wally has to dress up as, has to be the Flash in order to stop
Mm.
him, and he just gets batted around like it's nothing. Is like, we need Barry back, and then they got him back, and then Barry won. Like, no, you're faster than Barry. Like, what? Why do you need his help? You're better
And,
than him.
and
We're
it's
really
also
gonna
like
have finally have Wally West be the Flash, some people's favorite version of the Flash, for half an
an
episode.
episode. And again, it's the first episode, and then it immediately goes back. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know if you remember, but like when they're hyping up like between seasons, they're
Mm-hmm.
hyping up like the first episode so hard, and then it's like, okay, now we're done with that. Like, because like
Yeah.
especially with the Flashpoint thing, like that was a huge like
Mm-hmm.
advertisement thing. It's like, oh, everything's different. No, Flashpoint changed everything, all that, and then it's like, okay, everything's fine now.
The only things that are different after all that's over is Wally has powers, and
Like
the
Diggle's
the
daughter
black
is
guy
now a
from Arrow
son.
has a daughter
Yeah.
instead of a son now. Like that's the
Yes.
only thing that's
That's
really
literally the
different.
only difference. And it's like, that's it. And then he's like, and then
Like,
it's so, and then they make Cisco like really mad at Barry for half a season because, oh, my brother that I never liked doesn't exist now. And
yeah.
I hate you for that. And it's like, I
What?
don't really get that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we went out of our way the season or 2 seasons ago to like establish how much you don't like your brother, and then in this version, the brother that you never met,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, how dare you? It's like, I mean, I feel like if you've never met somebody, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like that's like the equivalent of being upset at somebody because of like a sibling that was never born. It's like, I mean, if they were never born, I've never really like knew them, so like I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
It was just made it was a weird choice because it like forced Cisco to be up like again because Cisco's been like this very chill, very like fun, lighthearted comedy character
Mm-hmm.
who now just is uncharacteristically cold and angry, especially at Barry, which made no sense because it's like, I mean, even if you are upset about him, one, make it kind of make sense, and two, it shouldn't like this shouldn't last for 10 episodes just because you need
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah. That's kind of CW's bread and butter, just creating conflict, just to have conflict, just have characters
Yeah.
decide they don't like each other anymore.
It's just like
Um,
that doesn't make
like,
sense. Yeah.
but then when something happens that should actually matter, like Barry creating Flashpoint, like Barry being absorbed by the Speed Force, that should be season wide arcs. They're just solved in 20 minutes. Like
Yeah.
season 4 should have been at least half a season of Wally being the Flash. Like, yeah, I know that Grant Gustin is the main character of the show. I understand. Like, you don't. If I were if I were Grant, I wouldn't want to be shut out of half a season or even more. But I feel like the way they did it just again felt kind of disrespectful in a way to like for all the people who are fans of Wally West Flash, just give him maybe 20 minutes of being this character, but whatever.
Right?
Yeah, but yeah, that was. I didn't even finish season 4.
Yeah.
It was. I don't remember if it was either the episode with the girl that had like the sonic violin or just like that. There were so many times that episode that like I almost turned it off. Just something
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, something about her power makes her better against the Thinker than the Flash, even though the Flash can literally create sonic booms, but whatever.
Yeah.
We literally stop time, whatever.
Yeah, or like the
And
one
then,
that's just like lucky, like the domino thing where she
yeah,
just luck is her power and like, which like isn't like
uh,
insane. It's just kind of like, really,
uh,
like I don't know. It's just kind of
yeah.
like
I don't remember if it
okay,
was that episode or if it was or if whichever came first, but it was the one that had Barry and Iris like switch powers, or I guess give Iris his powers for a day.
oh man, yeah, those were dark
That was
times.
that was a little.
Woo.
I don't know, just that was annoying.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like
um,
I don't know. It definitely felt like you're kind of just doing favors for like people on the cast who wanted certain things more than just
mhm.
like, hey, this is the mapping important. It's like, hey, again, it's like, hey, I want to be the Flash for once, and they're like, yeah, sure, we can write that in for some
Yeah.
reason. But
Okay.
oh man, I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, and the show, like, and as far as fall offs go, I mean, the fall off was
Yeah.
rough because I mean,
5 seasons after that I just don't know anything
that's what
about.
I'm
That I
saying.
don't
No,
care to learn
and
about.
it's so funny because like every like season or so, I would like tune in for an episode, and then
Mm.
it's like
Nope.
somehow incredibly different, but entirely the same. There's a
Mm.
new HR Harrison Wells, somebody with a funny voice or something again, and then it's like new like a bunch of castmates I don't recognize, and like maybe Cisco, and it's just kind of like, uh, nah, maybe next season. Like it's just
Yeah.
like I don't know. And like, I mean, again, they made 8 seasons of it, and I mean, that's awesome. But also, yeah, the first
Yeah.
3 seasons are all you really need. The rest is kind of don't need to exist,
Yeah.
probably for the most part.
Yeah. So yeah, the Flash can go.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have to go with the original X-Men show.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, have you seen this at all?
I've seen a good amount of it.
Okay.
I I like the story they're telling. I like all the characters. Just something about shows made in that era just like I know they're older shows. They don't have the production quality of modern animation. I understand that, but just that show in particular really shows its age. Just things just feel very stiff. Characters just move kind of weird. Especially compared to something like Batman the Animated Series, which was developed in a very specific way to keep it more timeless.
Hmm.
And I know that not every show is going to be made that way, but like watching those shows back to back, just Batman is much more fluid. Things just seem to flow together a lot better. It just I don't know. I just something about that show, and even Spider-Man the animated series to an extent, um, I just couldn't like. I think I watched like 20 episodes of X-Men and like about the same amount of Spider-Man. Just something about just the way those are animated just didn't. Just, I just really couldn't get into it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely one of those shows that it's great, but I think there is a lot of nostalgia blindness to it. I'm not saying that it's not good. It is very good, but I do think a lot of people, people remember three things. They remember how great the intro
Oh
is.
yeah.
They remember Wolverine's voice, and they remember I liked it.
Yeah.
And it is still good, but it's also like I think it is a little, yeah, nostalgia overrated, like a lot of things on this list, to be fair.
Mm.
But I do think it's very interesting how, like, I mean, again, with X-Men 97 coming back and then really kind of really like polishing off a lot of things, it's like obviously the
Mm.
show's like there's like a 20 something gap as far as like, years of development, but you're kind of like, wow, yeah, this looks,
Yeah.
I now looking back, I'm kind of like, ooh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this hurt.
Yeah. So yeah, nothing like about the show itself. I really have like a major issue with. Just it's clearly made in the early '90s. That's not its fault, but like compared to all these other shows that I do really like, and like I said with other shows here like that do hold up better. I personally think it's time for that show to go.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get into it pretty soon because there's a
Yeah.
lot of shows on here. I'm like, I would watch this whole show through right now. So
Yeah. You
I,
can take Creature Commanders off.
oh, yep, that is true. That is true. It has been enough time.
Okay. You're
Okay. All right, my turn. Hmm. So I'm gonna be honest, I
mm,
haven't really seen this show as much. I've seen,
mm,
so I've heard good things, and I
yes.
do believe them. But for me, I find it hard. I don't know. I've seen Daredevil a lot, and I like Daredevil a lot,
Mm,
but I haven't seen Luke Cage. But
okay.
I know Luke Cage is good. But
Mm,
I like it's one of those shows that I feel like it almost feels like a side quest show,
yeah.
kind of like you could watch this or you could just watch like something else and like get caught up and like you're
Mm,
not really miss. I don't know. It's hard because I do respect the show a lot and I think it does a good job with what I've seen, but I haven't really seen enough of it to feel like, yeah, I really need to watch this show like I feel about Daredevil or something like that.
yeah.
So I know a
Yeah.
lot of the other like good.
Yeah. That's completely accurate. I enjoyed it. It's the only other Daredevil extended universe show that I've actually seen. A
Right.
friend from college, like there was a room, there's a TV in the like common area that he was watching Luke Cage, and I was like, oh okay, so we watched through it all together. Um, it's good. Like I really like the main guy who's playing Luke Cage. Mahershala Ali plays a fantastic villain in that show. Um, I don't really remember the story perfectly, but I do remember just liking what I saw. However, yeah, it definitely feels like the kind of show that like if you didn't watch, you wouldn't necessarily miss anything story wise. You just have to know that Luke Cage exists and he's strong. Like as long as you
Right.
know those two, like recent episode of season 2 of Daredevil we're watching through right now. Someone just like offhand mentions like in a list of vigilantes they mention Jessica Jones. It's like she's around. Like okay, that's all you need to know. Like, as long as you know that she's around, that show could be great. I don't know, but like as long as you know this character exists, you can you know you can you can figure it out from there. Um,
Yeah, essentially.
yeah, like I would recommend Luke Cage, but it's definitely not required viewing. Like like Daredevil is. It is objectively an amazing show, whereas Luke Cage is good, but especially since I think it's only 2 seasons, it's kind of hard to get as invested in it as other shows that lasted longer. So, yeah. How much Smallville have you seen?
Less than I should have. I will put it that way. Like it. First of all, I think it has like a ton. Doesn't it have like 10 seasons or something like
ran
that?
for
Like
I think 10 years. Yeah,
right.
I think it started in like 03 and ended in 11 or something like that. It ran for 8, 9, 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like all the clips I've seen online about it, like look appealing. I just haven't seen it, so I don't have any strong opinions about it. I would feel bad about getting rid of it just because I haven't seen it, but
at this point,
I don't personally know what I would get rid of right now outside of it.
That's fair.
I respect it for being the first CW superhero show. It kind of, like you said with Daredevil, it kind of like how Arrow, because it exists in the way it does, it snowballed into Daredevil being as good as it is, but Smallville being the progenitor to all of that, in a way is kind of the origin of kind of how superheroes are now in general. So, like, in that way, I respect it, but I can't really say anything good about it personally because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, same. And I mean, it's one of those things too where, like, again, when you're on for 10 seasons, 20 something episodes a season on the CW in the 2000s, like, you kind of know it's like gonna be like One Tree Hill with superheroes to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, not that it don't, yeah, but it's like for me, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm sure this show, like, I know people have a lot of nostalgia for it, they like it a lot, but it feels like something that would probably be hard to go through currently, especially with like 200 episodes. It looks like so that seems like a lot, especially with a show that kind of does the same thing with another show I forgot to put on here. Well, I guess I didn't forget, but kind of like Gotham did, where it's like you're not like you're not really getting to where we want to be till like the literal last frame of the show is like your Superman. So it's kind of like, which is by design, obviously, but it's kind of like if we're doing 10 seasons of this, it's going to be really hard to be like, I mean, it's basically a 10 season teaser, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I kind of see that being not an issue per se, but like I could see that not being as compelling for that long, for that many seasons and that many episodes.
Mm-hmm. And almost exactly like with Gotham, because you still have to run this show for X number of seasons, and it is still set in this world. You can only really do so much before you have to start pulling in a lot of the bigger stories. So by the time Smallville was over, Doomsday already happened. I don't know I just know that Doomsday happened. I don't know exactly the outcome of that. But like, a lot of his established villains are already around. So it's by the time he actually is Superman, I don't really know what else he can really do. But
it's like we kind of just skip straight to like you're already done, because there's like, I mean, because I think they had like the Flash, Green Arrow, like there's a lot of like other Justice Leaguers that already are in the show too, and it's like wow, we're really just like throwing these out here, you know what I mean? Kind of like again, like you kind of just have to, because that's the only way to keep it interesting, So yeah, I have no real strong feelings for it. I know some people there's a lot of nostalgia I think for it, but I don't think it's very like, I don't know, I don't think it's that great probably as a whole. So yeah, it's not a bad choice in my opinion. Oh man, speaking of choices. Oh goodness. Hmm. Although I really like this show and I
Hmm.
really love like what it does for the character, I think the 90s Spider-Man show can probably
Okay.
be next just because two things.
Mm.
One, I understand budget cuts are a thing, but bro, watching this show as an adult, the amount of recycled like animation is atrocious. Like it is
Yeah.
really, real. Like by the end of the show, like I mean, like anytime Spider-Man like flips behind somebody and swings, anytime the Green Goblin shows up, he does the exact same glider flip turn animation. Anytime someone throws a bit, like it's really, really noticeable after the first or second season, and you're kind of just like, they really like. I understand, like you're writing a cartoon in the '90s, you're drawing this. I get it,
Hmm.
but like the recycling's insane. Like it's really noticeable, and I'm just kind of like, man, that's rough. But like the show as a whole does a great job. I really like how they make Peter very relatable, but also like he feels relatable, but he's also clearly Spider-Man. He's been doing
Hmm.
this for a minute. He knows what he's doing. He's very funny. He has good jokes.
Oh
I
yeah.
love their Jameson. He's classic. I too like I love Willem Dafoe, but I really like this Green Goblin is what got me into the character.
Hmm.
Like I to this day will quote this Green Goblin just casually. It's some of the best, like I mean the best laugh, really good, just menacing. He just does not care. He's just a bad dude. It's great.
uh,
Like he does that really well. I love how they make other villains more like they use the Hobgoblin really well because
mhm.
he kind of just like he's the epitome of I can steal that and sell it for money. And he does it so often that it's kind of funny because like we'll be in an arc, we'll be doing an entirely different thing, and like yeah, we're not even involved. And then out of nowhere, the Hobgoblin shows up, takes the thing, and runs away. And now we all have to like go after him. And he's like, yeah, well, that's what he, and it's so funny because like that's the most criminal thing you can do,
Yep.
just rob other criminals. And it's so interesting because, like, to this day, my brother and I will just, whenever someone takes something just to sell it for more money, we just call it hobgoblining because it's so iconic with this character. But yeah, I think it does a really good job with that show. I think it does good with, like, the things with, like, Venom and stuff like that. I think it's very interesting how they do it earlier than you would think with, like, the symbiote and
Yeah.
stuff, but it still works well. I will say some of the seasons are incredibly weak. Like
Mm.
there's this one season, and I think it's the Legendary Heroes or something like that. And basically, it's a bunch of heroes around the same time as Captain America, like in the 40s,
uh,
and they're like old people now, but they somehow get their old young powers back. But like, it's this whole arc with time travel, dude. When I tell you, this was like the most bland season ending of any show I've ever seen. Like it was so uninteresting. It was so hard to be interested. It was really difficult.
Mhm.
And again, it was hard because this show had done a really good job with season endings and cliffhangers and stuff like that before. But I just remember set being like almost it was hard to finish that season. We were very close to just skipping and going to the next season. But I like the show a lot. I think it does a really good job with a lot of the villains. I think they're very memorable. It's very interesting. But at the same time, I mean, looking at other Spider-Man shows specifically, given more time, especially like Spectacular Spider-Man, I think if given more time, the show would definitely surpass this show. But I think this is like
Mm.
the quintessential Spider-Man show currently, just because of
Right.
what else exists. But
Mm.
that being said, I think compared to like especially like Batman animated series and stuff like that, I think it's I'm not gonna say not as good, but I think there are definitely areas where it struggles where like Batman the animated series did not.
Mm.
But overall, still very good show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Now, think I Yeah, I think I want to go ahead and start chipping away at that first column with My Adventures with Superman.
Oh, that was my next pick. Ah,
I don't. Yeah, sorry.
no, you're good.
I love that
You're
show.
good.
I think the characterization of every single character is done extremely well. Outside of like Luthor, which I'm sure he'll get there, but
Right.
I really, really liked Brainiac in season two. I think everything with him was done very well. I like his voice, his design was amazing. Um, just the general art style I really like. However, there are a couple of choices they made with certain characters that I feel either limit them or are just missed opportunities with how that thing should be in the comics. Like, for example, Metallo, instead of being one guy, like one really strong robot guy with a kryptonite heart, it's a bunch of expendable robots that kind of suck. And Waller sees Luther make all these really bad robots, and she's like, you can have all the money you need to make them even better." Like, but and then they show up in the finale and they still suck. So I don't know what was all that like. Why call it Metallo if it's not gonna be this formidable opponent for Superman? Um, like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that one. I like the idea of a bunch of like pretty much every single um, Superman villain being in this show. I don't necessarily love how all of them, all of their powers come from some Kryptonian technology. Like, I don't know. I feel like Banshee maybe should be able to just, like Banshee and Volcana and uh, 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 Livewire, like all of them having suits that let them do their thing just feel a little limiting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that might be the only real complaint. But otherwise, I think it's just a very, very solid show.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I like it a lot. I like how they do the characters. I really like Clark is just like a goofy guy, but he also like really cares about people, and he's the quintessential understanding of Superman. I love Jimmy so
Yes.
much. Like Jimmy is like he's kind of like an extra audience member. He's just kind of like, wait a minute, why would you do that? That's a terrible
Mm,
idea. Everyone's like, oh yeah, maybe that's a good idea. But like, yeah, I like how they do that. But like you said, I think how they handle the villains for the most part is probably I wouldn't say the weakest, but just kind of like one of those glaring issues where it's like in some ways it's really good. Like I like the idea of Parasite kind of being more machine-ish,
hmm
but interesting still.
Yeah.
But I also understand like, with like yeah, every villain just kind of getting their powers from just random, I guess, Kryptonian. I don't know, like Kryptonian tech that's just giving everyone their powers
Mm,
kind of feels a little on the nose.
yeah.
Especially with Superman also figuring out, oh, I'm from this other planet, I'm from this, and it's like, oh yeah, like, and like also the whole like, what is it like, X Day or whatever, like
Yeah.
whatever, like yeah, like I never really like got with that whole plot line thing where it's like there was a Kryptonian semi invasion or something. Like I just don't really I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
about that. That kind of feels kind of out of left field. Like it just happened to be Kryptonian, I guess, or I guess Brainiac or something. It
hmm
just feels kind of a bit on the nose, but I don't know. But
Yeah.
I
And
like the show
Superman
a
was just
lot.
kind of left behind. Like that seems a little, yeah,
Yeah.
little forced.
Yeah, it feels a little forced. And I know it's a different iteration, and I like a lot of things it does do, but
Mm,
some things it does, I'm kind of like, we'll see. But it's still early. I mean, they're only 2 seasons in,
hmm
and we'll see what they kind of expand on how to do. I also really like the relationship between Lois and Clark. I think they did a
Yes.
really good job not making it the typical like will they, won't they? For the most part, they kind of just did, and then it's
Mm,
also like like yeah, like kind of how like like a CW show would have just like forced conflict
Yeah.
And they're not gonna talk and understand, which like initially they don't, but then they immediately do like any adult would.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, oh, thank goodness, we're like not gonna be terrible for some reason, because like that's all. Especially with a show with not as many episodes, if you waste an episode, like I'm not talking to them because of but, it's like, oh, come on, like
Yeah.
no one, come on, you don't be reasonable. But they did a good job with that. But yeah, I'm fine with this choice.
Mm. Yeah. All right. Still very excited for season 3, though. It should be coming next year. So.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Mm.
I'm less excited because now you took my pick. Now I have to make a different one because. Thinking. I know this is kind of cheating, and you're not going to like me for doing this.
Are you taking Ninja Commandos?
Yeah. See, now is an appropriate time because I feel like now is like, some of the other ones have gotten out of the way that I'm kind of like, I don't think this show's bad. Now I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable taking it off the board because, like we said, it's done really well. I love how it's written, but there are some issues with the ending. There are some issues with, they are like kind of good, kind of bad, is ambiguous, like kind of justifying the characters, which like, especially like I understand like there was a while where there was an era of like every character's misunderstood, and then it's like, no, can we just have villains that are just villains now? But I mean, I don't think that one way or the other is right or wrong, but I definitely think like, I think here it kind of works, but I feel like if it wasn't all of them, it would work better. Because
Yes.
I feel like if it was
Absolutely.
like half and half, like some of them are just scumbags and some of them are actually like good people in bad situations, I think it would be a lot more compelling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but no, I definitely can see. But again, I am really excited for this show to continue because I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and my boy GI Robot is back, which is
Yeah.
so hype because I literally stood up and cheered when at the end. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Him dying made me remember that this is a Suicide Squad thing.
Dude.
It's like, oh right, they're all supposed to die.
Right? Like it made sense,
I
but it was also like, oh
didn't want
man,
him to
bro.
die.
No, like, well, he's not like first. I mean, like it makes sense because he's the robot, I guess, but it's also like,
Yeah.
so he's such a glorious send off just to return. I love it. But yeah, I'm good with taking it off now.
Okay.
I know.
All right. I think my next pick, I'm between two, but I think for reasons you'll understand in just a second, I'm going to go with Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably my next pick too.
I really liked the first 3 seasons of the show a lot. However, not that I thought season 4 was bad, but season 5 is either currently out or like it's either over or like currently going, and I haven't seen a single episode of the most recent season. I just didn't.
Wow.
Like, I was literally on Max the other day. I was like, oh, season 5 is out. Okay, this isn't just like, I'm kind of like, I didn't really have a drive to like watch it right then, even though I really liked the first 3 seasons. Season 4 was good, but I don't know, just something about. I think it's kind of steered away from what I really liked from season 1. Like, I liked Harley Quinn's characterization. I liked just the antics that her and Poison Ivy and just the rest of her little team got up to. Um, I don't know. I just feel like making it more of a Batman show, ironically, kind of made it feel a little less special, I guess.
Yeah. It's like you're steering from what made you kind of stand out in the first place.
Yeah.
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 And for me, it kind of just feels like, I don't know, I guess like I like it a lot in theory, but I feel like for me, it kind of just feels like they're kind of just not running out of ideas per se, but it kind of just feels like they're kind of it's like the not the joke because it's more than one joke, but it's like the idea feels like it's kind of running its course. Like I feel like you kind of can only go so long. I mean, not that they can't, but it's just it kind of feels like yeah, it's really violent and zany and funny and like over the top crazy, but it's also kind of like you can only do that so much before it stops like having like it's like the reason like for example a show like Rick and Morty I feel like works is because even though it's very consistent with like the humor and like just over the top violence and stuff, the way they write episodes changes drastically throughout the show, and I think that's what keeps it so fresh.
Right.
And I think this show doesn't do that as much. Like I feel like a lot of the episodes or a lot of the ideas are kind of the same, just reshuffled,
Mm.
and it makes it kind of, I guess, go stale a little faster, at least for me. And I think that's kind of why I've kind of lost interest over the last couple seasons. But that's also just
Yeah.
my take. I mean, I might, I mean, other people might disagree. So I mean, that's fair. But yeah, I've kind of also like I've seen it. Like I haven't watched 4 or 5. Like I've seen it, and I know it's there. And I'm kind of like I could watch this, but I'm also like, well,
Mm. So yeah, I'll probably get around to season 5 eventually. I just at this point I don't have like a drive to rush out and watch it, especially since there is a bunch of other stuff coming out that you need to catch up on or is currently out. So yeah.
yeah, I think so. I'm just yeah, it's not bad, but there's other stuff that I'm kind of like I think I like this a little bit better.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
Oh man, this is about to start hurting a little bit. Oh
There's like
man.
2 on here. After we get rid of those 2, I'm going to be making some choices.
Right? Well, that's the thing. It's like we're about to start really really oh man. Okay. Man,
Hmm?
I really like Superman. I really
Yeah.
do. But I think Superman the animated series is next. I
Really?
know. I mean,
Already?
I okay. So I know, I
Huh.
do, I get that, and I love this show. I do, and I love Superman a lot. I do, but
Mm.
I think for me, Superman the all animated series. Maybe it's because it was going the same time as Batman, or maybe it's
Mm.
because I feel like what this show did and then it kind of not like the Justice League version of Superman feels like it's a different Superman a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And because of that, I mean, not just because it's literally voiced by a different guy, but it's also like it feels like a lot that he goes through in this series doesn't carry over for a lot, especially
Hmm.
how it ends with like the whole legacy dark side thing. But it's like, I guess for me, I think that distances me from that character because it feels like a different one. And maybe that's why I feel kind of like I don't know. Cause now I'm second guessing. So I'm like, no, but like I don't know. It's hard because out of everything DCAU related, I think this is the one thing I'm kind of like. Well, outside of like the Zeta Project, but I don't even count that.
The
But
what?
you know, yeah, it's
Okay.
important, but it's not important. But yeah, like outside of that, it's kind of like I don't know. Like I just there are certain episodes I love to death.
Mm.
But there are others that I'm kind of just like, you know, I get you're trying to make it compelling, but why is Superman? Why is this even an episode? This is Superman we're talking about. And I mean, it's really hard to. I don't know. It's very iconic in a lot of ways because like this is like the most iconic Lois Lane. I love everything about Lex Luthor in this
Hmm.
show, but at the same time, a lot of things I like about Lex is also in Justice League. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
you know, that does kind of more help Justice League than it helps this show too. And it's like, I mean, oh, Darkseid, but also Darkseid's also in Justice League too, and like he does
Yeah.
even greater stuff there, and it's like I don't know, man.
So, if does it help your choice if I say I'm gonna save it to just lock it in?
I mean, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
can say,
because
yeah, yeah.
like you
Go
said
ahead.
before, we never use all of our saves, so I might as well.
Yeah, you might as. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think that's great. I think that's a
yeah.
great call
I
because.
I really like the show like a lot more than I thought I would go initially
Mm,
because well, at some point within the last 2 years, my roommate and I did like a whole watch through of from Superman into Justice League. And you're right, he
yes.
does seem a little different here and there. Like his design's a little different, obviously voiced by a different person, but I don't think that takes away from this show. I think, yeah, like the recurring cast, Jimmy, Lois, I can not think of his name, Perry White, all the
Mhm.
recurring villains are amazing. It's just so funny to me how many times Metallo comes back and is the same amount of problem every single time. Like it just finds some new creative way to deal with them. Um,
Mhm.
the couple of different unique characters they created for the show, Livewire and Volcana, are both unique, like first originated from the animated series.
Mhm.
The Lobo episodes I thought were incredible. My favorite episode is probably the one where he had to fake his own death in order to like
Yes,
have
the
that
late
reporter
Mr.
like
Kent.
yeah
Yes,
yeah and
great
then like
episode.
at the end that reporter like right before he gets electrocuted to
Yes.
death realizes that he's Superman. Like that's just such a good episode. um yeah, it definitely does do the thing that because he he is obviously Superman, but because you need an episode to happen, you need him to be a little more vulnerable than you think Superman should be.
Mhm.
So like lightning just takes him out. Like if he gets punched hard enough, he's down for a while. Like there are certain things about him that like you want him to just dominate every scene he's in, but in order to make the episode 22 minutes long, he has to, you know, he has to make it a
Mhm.
little, they have to write him in a way where it has to be a little more, a little more back and forth.
Right. And I
But
think that's why like the late Mr. Kent works so well. Because it's not a I need to punch this problem. It's I need to think of a way to make this work
mm,
without I love like and that's I feel like how Superman needs to be because everyone's like, oh, Superman's boring, or oh, it's like, no, it's just you need to write Superman smarter. And I
yes,
love that they had to do that.
absolutely. So yeah, I really like the show. I think it deserves to go a little further, but
Okay.
like next round, if you want to pick it, 2 turns from now, I think at that point I'd be okay with it. But right now, I think it should
Mhm.
go a little further.
Okay, well said. I like see this is good. I like you wait using the saves before like the last like three. I feel like
Yeah.
is much better.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. So I haven't seen like more than like 3 episodes of X Men Evolution. I
Oh yeah.
really like the art style. I really like the characters' voices and just everything I've seen of it, but I haven't seen it enough of it to confidently say it should go further for me.
No,
Does that make sense?
this is a perfect place for it to go off. And honestly,
Cool.
now looking back on it, yeah, I'm like I probably was the better choice between the two. But no, I mean, I like this show a lot because for me, this was my introduction to X-Men because I
Mm,
didn't watch the 90s show until a lot later because this was a show because we didn't have cable growing up. So it was literally like I got this like at Blockbuster we would get the like, oh, episodes 4 through 7 or whatever.
mm,
And the thing that's interesting about this version is they're all high schoolers, which initially you're
mm.
like, oh gosh, that
Yeah.
sounds awful. But they do it in a way that makes it really compelling. Again, like it's obviously like Professor Xavier, Storm, Wolverine. They're like the adults are still adults, but
Mm,
like for the most part, Cyclops, Jean, etc. is in high school. But they do a really good job because of two things. I think one, I think they do a good job of making the issues the same issues, even though they're younger, because they're still like very much persecuted because they're mutants. There's like whole episodes with Kurt who gets like, people are like, what's wrong? What's Nightcrawler? He's like, oh, what's wrong? This guy's, I mean, he's literally a blue guy. He like, you know what I mean? He's like either the freak. He has a real like, fear of being persecuted because of that. So in later seasons, once he gets his like secret identity watch, like he is like so clings to his identity that when like mutants are like found out, essentially, it's like he like doesn't initially reveal himself. He like lies to everyone and says, no, that's not me, I'm not a mutant. It's like he kind of betrays his friends in a way and kind of lets them get persecuted because he's not ready to give that up yet. And I think that's a really strong thing. I think they do a really good job with like, making it feel like even though they're younger, they don't tone down the issues any. And I think that's a really good job of doing that. I also really like how they do a lot of the villains. I mean, I think Magneto, per usual, is awesome.
Yeah.
And everything he does. I really like how they do other like Gambit's really done well. I think that like, which is interesting because like the show's kind of not a prequel, but kind of is, because it's like a lot of people who are villains are more like, like, because like, for example, like Colossus starts out as a villain and then it's kind of, yeah, I know, right? But it, as the show essentially ends where the average like X-Men show would initially start. You know what I mean? So it's like by the time it ends, it's like Colossus is like, you know what, you guys are pretty cool. And Gambit's originally a bad guy. He kind of becomes a good guy after he warms up to Rogue a little bit. Rogue doesn't have the full power set she usually does. She only has the absorption ability, but like the whole Miss Marvel thing hasn't happened, or Captain Marvel thing hasn't happened yet, assumingly. But there's like at the end of the show, there's like a future, not a flashback, I guess a flash forward that Xavier has from Apocalypse that basically shows him like the X-Men acting like how they are, where it's like, oh, they're grown up and Rogue has her true powers and Jean has the Phoenix Force, and that's a whole thing. And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's almost like a prequel show, but it's not. It's really well done though. I like it a lot. I think it's a very underrated version of the X-Men, and I think it's one that if you don't watch it, you would think is terrible, but if you actually watch it, you're like, oh, this is actually done really well.
Okay.
But yeah,
cool.
But no, I definitely think now is a great part. Because again, I love the show, but there are definitely some episodes and some seasons that aren't as strong as others. And I think that's completely fair to be like, okay. Because they do still do high school stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there are episodes about like the school dance and like the Friday night pep rally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, it is still a kid's show, but I get it. But yeah. Okay. Man. That was a good pick, because that was going to be my pick, probably. Okay. What is left? Man, there's some good TV on the screen right now.
There's 20 left.
Oh, gosh. Really? Oh, man, I don't know. Okay. So, although I do think, I think it's done really well, and I think a lot of people would give it like, again, I know you haven't really seen it. I've seen some of it, and I think it is really good, but I feel like probably X-Men 97 can maybe go next.
I mean,
that's too early.
I haven't seen it, so it's up. Like the clips I've seen on Twitter are amazing, but I haven't actually seen it.
That's what I'm saying, and it's one of those things where I think this is more just because it's our list. It's probably stops here. I think objectively, it's probably much better than we realize. But honestly, I haven't seen it. So it's kind of like the hype of others can only get you so far on things that I've seen every episode of multiple times.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I feel like without being seen, it's an honor to make it this far, but also like a line must be eventually crossed somewhere. Because like, I'm not going to make a show win that I've never seen. I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I respect it. I'm glad it exists. I will watch it eventually. I just, as of right now, I can't. That is one. That was one of the two I was gonna go between next anyway. So yeah. All right, and now you can get rid of
Yep.
Superman. Yeah. All right. I think because you got rid of X-Men, I think your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah. That's I think is the correct next call.
Yeah. It's it's the newest one on this list. However, I do think it is a very very good show. It is Spider-Man in high school for like the fifth time, but it does that very well. Um, I actually kind of like that it's not just your run of the mill Flash Thompson, Eddie Brock, like MJ, like the name characters aren't there yet, but they still do a very good job with. I don't know if they're brand new characters or if there's characters that are just more prominent in this show, but I think what they're doing with the characters that they're using has been done very well. The art style I thought would be jarring ended up not mattering in the slightest. Um, the story is really good. Especially since there's only one season out, I personally couldn't justify it going further than this.
Yeah, that's fair. No, but I agree. I think it's done really good for what's done so far. I really like the characters. I think the motivations make a lot of sense. I like how at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's kind of just Spider-Man like doing stuff, but it's done in a way that subverts your expectations a lot from the typical Spider-Man stuff, but not in a way that sacrifices quality in the slightest. Like it's not just doing different stuff just to shock you, and then it's like they don't follow up. It's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, his secret identity got found out in like the second episode, but like it's done in a way that makes the story work and it's interesting. And now you're like, oh man, how is this going to affect later? Because we all know eventually this relationship's not going to be a great one. So it's kind of like, how is this going to change things going forward? And that's really interesting. I really like you said, I like a lot of supporting characters, although like, everyone knows Harry, but like, I don't really know these other characters like that, but they seem really interesting. They do it in a way that they're not annoying, essentially. They kind of just make them like they seem like regular friends to somebody. I also like how they're not doing the like, oh man, being Spider-Man makes you late for everything, and all people like they are, but kind of it's almost interesting because it kind of feels like they're doing the opposite. It's kind of like he's able to balance it much better logistically, but not emotionally, where usually it's the other way around. You know what I mean? It's like usually it's like, oh yeah, like saving the day and then going and then being on time for dinner is hard and like but it's like here you can make it on time, but yeah, you just went through a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I like how it's really like, because it's not like he was in the program and like, oh, you're failing the program because you're being Spider-Man, or oh, all your friends hate you because you missed the party because you're being Spider-Man. It's like, no, it's like your friends feel a certain type of way because you didn't trust them with this, or you didn't talk to them about that, or whatever. It's very like real stuff that whether you're Spider-Man or just busy in general could be a thing. So I like how they're changing from the usual without making it anything like jarringly different. And it's interesting to see new perspective of how this goes. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan, but I think it's time for it to go here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think definitely here is a good spot for that. But again, you've done well for making it this far. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
other shows exist. Oh my god!
Speaking of which,
other shows. Whew, man, some good TV right here. There's a lot of Emmys up here. I think. Man, this is tough. This is really tough.
we're in the top half.
I know, but like every decision is gonna take like,
Yeah.
I know this is the cop out answer, but I guess I'll just pick Superman again.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
I accept
I didn't
it.
want to do that, but it's literally like it's so hard to make a pick now. It's just like, dude, we're gonna be here, and like now it's just like I slightly don't like one frame of this show, so I have to delete it like
Mhm.
level. Like, ugh. But yeah,
Yeah.
Superman's amazing.
Yeah. I think. Uh, I'm gonna potentially make this harder for you and
Oh
say
no.
the boys because you haven't seen
Oh,
that show. So
okay.
that would have been an easy
I
pick
have
for
not.
you, but
Yeah,
I
I know
I
that's a big. You
really
love this
like this
show.
show. Um,
Yeah.
I it is one of those shows that like anybody who's seen it says that it's really good, and then you watch it and it's like, oh yeah, that's really good.
As advertised.
Like season 4 was like not as good as the previous seasons, but it clearly is building to something that will finish incredibly strong. Um, yeah, every single character I really like. Just the way the world is framed, it just is framed in a way that feels very realistic. Like, yeah, if superheroes existed in this way, I feel this is kind of how things would go. Um, Not like to this extent, but generally speaking,
Mhm.
the motivations of every character are very strong. Like it's one of those shows where if a character dies, you really feel like like you're you're missing something now. That character is not a part of the show anymore. Um, the action sequences are overall very good. Um, yeah, I it definitely deserves the hype that it has received thus far, and I really hope season 5 is as good as it's expected to be. Uh, but yeah, as far as live action shows on here, I think it probably my least favorite overall, but it's probably the most consistently good, but the highest highs of these other shows. Well, outside of Penguin, Penguin's probably because more consistently good. It's of the Marvel stuff compared to the Marvel stuff is probably the most consistently good, but the highest highs of like Loki and WandaVision I think are higher than the boys. But the boys I wouldn't say outside of season 4 have any like bad moments, but because season 4 was again not as good as the rest of the show, I think that's the main thing I have to say against it. So
Yeah,
we'll go with it.
it's like the floor was never low, but it's like the ceilings were never as high as some other, some
Yeah.
other shows were. So it's kind of like consistently like very good, but
Mm.
never necessarily S tier.
Yeah.
Which at this point, that's gonna cost you
Mm-hmm.
somehow. Oh wow. Well, that doesn't make my choice any easier.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sorry.
Wow. Man. Man, there's some good TV here. Too early. I can't. Dude, this is really hard. How many we have left? Like 10? No, more than
7,
that. Like
2,
15?
6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think I count 16.
16. Oh
Yeah.
my god. Dude, this is insane. Okay. Imagine making a top 10, let alone a. Hmm. Next time, I'm just gonna list these and just go based on my chart. Oh, that would have been a smart move. Dude, I don't know. Man. There's no obvious picks anymore. All right. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't
Say it.
I want to say it. I
Say
can't.
it.
I don't. I don't know, man. Because I know some of these I know you love more than me, and I know some of these I know love more than you do, and I'm kind of trying to figure out where the line is. But I'm also like, we're at the point where anything's a fireable offense, so
I mean, your picks are your opinion, so whatever you think.
But I know, but it's like, well, you have saves too, I guess. So that's fair.
Yeah, because you got one left.
I know, which is good because I think like we're gonna need them, but I'm also like. So there's only one show on this list that I have not seen all the way through, 100%. And it's one that I'm sure you. I've never seen the Avengers show, and I have no idea. And I know I'm sure you love that show because.
I also haven't seen it all the way through.
Are you serious?
Correct. I've seen several episodes and a lot of clips on Twitter. Like every clip and every episode I've seen is amazing, but I haven't seen all of it.
Okay.
So
well, that makes me feel slightly better because that's the only one at this point that I kind of feel like I can with an honest conscience be like, I don't think it needs to go further because I feel like at this point any show else here I can give an hour-long TED talk about.
For real.
And yeah, and I'm kind of like, this is the only one I can't, and for that reason, I'm going to select it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because
it's one of those things where we haven't seen it for much of it at all, yet it still made it this far. That is a testament for how good we think it is. Right. I'm sure if I watch all of it, it might be on par with Justice League. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know, but it's still very good. It is one of those shows that got prematurely canceled because of the Disney merger and then trying to do their own thing with that terrible CG Avenger show. But the 2 seasons that exist, really good.
That's the thing, man. I know from the little I know of it and I have seen, I know it's very good, especially for the time. It's just at this point, if I can't give a college if I can't teach a college course on the class, I kind of just can't let it go at this point. So I guess that's my I have to go there.
Yeah.
Good luck, my friend.
I'm very curious how you'll react to this. I don't want to do it, but it's another one of those where I feel like once this is gone, I'll feel better about getting rid of others. Just gonna go ahead and rip this Band-Aid off. Young Justice?
Yeah, dude, yeah.
Dang it, because I adore the first 2.5 seasons of the show so much.
No, we're at the point because half of your show cannot be mid to garbage and you survive. Not at this point. Because again,
season 1 is spectacular.
The first 2 seasons are some of the best DC stuff ever made, legitimately.
Yes.
With the world building, to this day, no animated anything, in my opinion, has the level of world building that Young Justice does that well. They have everyone. They have every hero, sidekick, minor characters, all the they have everyone, and it works in a way that it doesn't feel forced. Everyone feels natural. It kind of just it's one of those shows too that you just you're expected to know who everyone is. And again, if you don't, that's one thing. But if you do, it's so appreciated
It
because they
respects
waste
the
no
audience
time.
to a T. So many things
Yes,
happen off screen, like Jason. They mention Jason Todd. You're just expected to just
once.
know that, like okay, like,
Yes, and
but
it's
we
just
do. It's
understood.
fine.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, but at this point, because again, this show came out, and like at this point, there's been multiple Batman shows, Justice League, like all types of movies. So like everything you need to know about most of these heroes for the most part, and it's like you don't really need to explain. It's like it's understood that this is that, and it's done so well because they really flesh out all the heroes, all the villains, everything. And I love the realism as far as like it's like the Justice League is like a strike team. It makes sense. It's very cool how like it's so organized. I love how it's like it's not just like okay, it's like there's a lot of political things, there's a lot of interesting like but this happens because there's behind the scenes. The whole entire mole thing is just done very
Oof.
well, like dude, like again to the point where no, you just don't see it coming, and it's done super well. I
Mm-hmm.
love how the show does a good job of kind of power scaling too, where it's like no character feels like they can just solo everyone. But as soon as any Justice Leaguer shows up, you just feel the difference.
Yes.
Like I love how one of the episodes in season one starts where the whole team just gets dogged by Clayface just
Oh
immediately.
yeah.
And then Batman just shows up
Shows
in
up and
like 10
just.
seconds, takes him down. And you're just like, yeah, because again, like that makes sense. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
Batman, and like they even in the show, they're like, "Well, Batman did this." Like, yeah, but Batman's Batman. That doesn't count. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just understood that like the lore of these characters, everyone feels very much as they should. Certain characters are just busted as they should be. Like, I love how organized it is. The Green Lantern Corps, like all the interplanetary stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
it's done so well. The whole thing with the Light and Vandal Savage and Luthor and all like playing chess while others are playing checker, like it's so well done, dude. And then they just drop the ball
Yeah.
a
Like
lot.
it goes like this show legitimately might have the highest highs and the lowest lows of anything
Yes.
left on this list. Like
Yes.
the heart, whatever the episode is, where Wally has to to carry that heart from the across the entire planet, while the rest of the team is
Yes.
teamed up with their Justice League member fighting all those ice
Like machine
contraptions all around.
weather.
Like
Yeah.
that
So
episode
beautiful.
might be my favorite single episode on this entire list.
Dude, it's so good. It's just like and like the dialogue. You're just like, who is this girl? Doesn't matter. And it's like, bro, like yes,
Like
bro.
it is so fascinating how theoretically the audience is with Wally. It's like, yeah, we, the audience, theoretically want to be there with the other Justice League members, watching them take out that giant machine. But really, like when it does cut back to Wally, we're still just as invested in what he's doing. Like it's so well done. And
Man.
then season 4, every episode that's not doesn't have to do with Talia, or sorry, Lady Shiva, sucks. That entire season is absolutely
Yes. Oh,
just a slog to get through.
it's weird because they do this thing where every arc or series of episodes is like a public service announcement for something. And like, don't get me wrong, I understand that there are issues, there are things that are important to recognize in the real world. However, this is a comic book show. I'm here to
Yes.
see villains get kicked in the face. I'm not here for how to accommodate for whatever. You know what I mean? It's like I'm
Yeah.
not saying those are bad things to have in the world. I'm just saying that is not. I don't want to watch This Is Us with a side of superheroes. I want to watch superheroes. Like
Like,
this is like I don't like it. I don't appreciate it as far as like that's not what this should be. I don't want to just like oh yeah with like Lagan boys just random interesting you know
thruple,
three people.
sure,
Yeah, like I mean
or
like
or then like literally taking time out of the which episode was the magic arc to have like 3 different people of different faiths do their prayer. Like I understand being like I am an extremely tolerant person when it comes to that kind of stuff. It doesn't really affect me like generally when that kind of stuff is in the show. It doesn't. I don't care at all. But when you're that when they're that in my face about it, when it has nothing to do with the actual plot of the show, I'm just even my brother, who is even more liberal than I am somehow, like even he was like, "This is too."
Yeah, and again, it's not even like it's the like, why is this here? Specifically, like this does not need to be in a superhero show like where we're at right now. Like this is not, and again, they're only 20-minute episodes, so when you stop for 5 minutes to talk about whatever social commentary or whatever we're talking about, it's kind of like, hey, like shouldn't we be going back into like kicking some villains in the face? Like I don't, it just,
I think
I don't know,
here's the
it's
problem.
really rough.
I think part of the problem is the first, 3-ish seasons respect the audience so much to just allow them to assume stuff happened off screen to just, you get it, you understand. But then when you have an entire like 10-minute scene dedicated to how Halo perceives themselves, it's just so in your face about it when you could just refer to them in gender neutral pronouns and just
keep going.
Just keep going. Like that's fine. We get it. We don't need a whole scene
like,
for it.
That's the thing. And I think that's what the show should really do. Because again, like I think it's more important to just recognize things as normal than to stop and make a like giant public service announcement about it. I feel like that makes it less normal. You have to like do a whole thing because like what I mean, like it's like, for example, like the whole Aqualad being gay thing, like didn't even notice for like the whole show. You know what I mean? It's like that's fine. Just keep it moving. You're just like, oh, okay, Aqualad's gay. Like, and just keep it moving. Like he's still awesome. He still kicks butt. He just, that's it. I mean, that's him as a person. It's like that's fine. That doesn't change anything about the story. We're not stopping the story to like explain it. That's fine. But like when you're stopping the story, stopping the theme, which again, like, don't get me wrong, I'm all about like social issues, but it's more just like when we're like, hey, let's stop fighting Darkseid for a minute to like talk about this. It's like, must we? Like, we're kind of in the middle of something cool, but yeah, I think because the show as a whole has, although some of the highest of highs of anything, period, as far as like DC stuff goes, it is definitely some of the lowest lows. Not only because of what it was, but just because it kind of stops feeling like a superhero show for many arcs in the later seasons. And that is, at this point, that's inexcusable.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the stuff with Lady Shiva and Cassandra Cain in season 4, that's really good. Even the stuff with with like the Lantern Corps on New Genesis, that was okay.
Again, the parts with Rocket were more annoying because of what they were trying to push, but it's more like I see how that could have been interesting if we weren't stopping for like a full circle moment, I guess, which was kind of like, one, I don't think really worked, and two, I feel like even if it did, I feel like this is not the place for it, but whatever.
But yeah, like you said before, I could go on an entire hour-long TED talk about how good season 1 and 2 are, but then season 3 you could kind of see the cracks forming, and then by season 4 you're just like, I want the show to keep going, but if it keeps going like this, I don't know if I'd rather want it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think I'd rather it be put down now than keep going in a way that's just further from what it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, but yeah, that's rough, which as of now, I believe it's canceled for good again this time. So we'll see, but great show.
Luckily, the cliffhanger at the end of season 4 wasn't as dramatic as the previous ones, because ending season 2 with Vandal Savage shaking hands with Darkseid, that's a big deal. But Darkseid is being like, oh yeah, Supergirl's around. Like, yeah, sure. That's, I mean,
Yeah, well, it's one of those things too,
that was
where
going
it's
to
like
happen.
Supergirl felt like one of the last characters because again, the show has everyone in
Yeah.
it. You
Like
know what I
her and
mean?
Raven were the only two real ones I was kind of waiting on.
Yeah, because I mean, for the most part, you have like, I mean, you have I think 4 of like 5 human Green Lanterns.
Mm.
You have everyone in the Bat family outside of like what Damian. Well, no, Damian was in the
No,
show too. That's
we saw
right.
Baby
Yeah,
Damien.
so
Yeah.
yeah, we saw Baby David. So you got like I mean, Batwoman was in it for a minute. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like okay, like you got you got the outsiders. You got everybody at this point. Like you got
Mm.
like the actual outsiders, not the like Beast Boy ones. But I mean
Yeah.
like Metamorpho and them. But it's like, yeah, man, it's really well done in terms of world, like the best DC world building period, in my opinion.
Yes.
But as far as just sticking the landing, as far as staying focused, it just really falls apart in the latter seasons, and I think that's why we had to stop it here.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
because I love that show so much, I didn't want to get rid of it. Like, you know, I
Yeah,
love the amount of show, the part of the show that I loved as much as I do. I didn't want to get rid of it, but now that I have gotten rid of it, I think I'll feel better about taking out some other stuff. But
yeah.
we'll see what you do first.
I don't know. I didn't want it to come to this, but I think if it wasn't for this pick, I think Young just would have been my next pick. But I think I'm going to, as much as I hate to say this, because I love this show, and this was the epitome of my Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to go with Static Shock here, and I love this show so much.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like we're at the point where it's like, an A minus is still not an A plus. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah. Like
you got to nitpick. God.
I watched through it recently. It is a
Mm,
very solid show. Like all the
yeah.
characters are very good. It's a show that actually tackles social issues very well, very effectively, without being like, and used it in a practical sense that drove the episode forward. Like a whole episode about gun violence, a whole episode about drug abuse, a whole episode
Yes.
about someone being dyslexic and that actually mattering to the plot of the
Yeah, I
show.
mean,
Like,
racism, like a lot of big issues that are
yeah.
just not, you know what I mean? I mean, even like, issues with the police and things like that. Like there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of really serious, real social issues that were addressed. And again, in a kid's show, which is
Yeah.
like really, especially for the time. I mean, that's really saying
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah. And it is a very good show. However, it's very funny watching it, basically like within the span of a month or two, and noticing just how drastically the animation improves between seasons. Because season one looks like a slideshow sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
so everything is very flat. It still has a similar animation style that something like the original Spider-Man or X-Men show has, where like things just little stiffer.
Mm-hmm.
And then by season three, it looks much more in line with like Justice League or
Mm-hmm.
shows in that era. And by that point, it's hitting a stride. And it's very, very good.
Yes, no, it definitely got like you can tell that like when they got picked up, they were like, all right, let's put this money to good use.
Yeah.
Because like even from the first episode of the second season, you can just kind of like, oh wow, yeah, they really because like especially the contrast on like character models is
Mm-hmm.
like much more significantly better. And I
Well,
think
with
that's
season two specifically, the first episode of season two was a crossover with the Batman new
right.
adventure with Batman and Robin, and that episode looked incredible. And then the next episode is back to clearly like a little better than season one, but not like as good as it just was with the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a couple of other crossover episodes here and there looked better, and then season three looked
So good.
looked as good as the Batman episodes were in the
Yes.
second season.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, and that's something else I really want to praise the show for. This show, I mean, granted, some obviously much better than others, but this show had a lot of crossovers in it. I mean, a lot. And like with existing shows and with just like life stuff, it was really interesting because, like, again, like you mentioned, I mean, there's multiple crossovers with Batman. There's one with Batman and Robin. There's another one with Batman, and then there's a Batman Beyond crossover as
Yeah,
well,
that's a
which
good
is
one.
like really good. There's a Superman one. There's a Justice League two-parter. Like, there's a lot. There's a Green Lantern one. There's a lot of hero crossovers, which is good because it helps build the world building for this universe that's together and keeps it going. Because when that first season starts, you don't know if this is just its own thing or connected to anything. And
Mm-hmm.
then season 2, I was like, oh no, we're part of this. We're in this.
Yeah,
Like, we're right in with everybody else, and it does a really good job of that continuity, keeping things together. I know there's like a throwaway line about the Teen Titans that obviously didn't work out exactly with that, but at the
yeah,
time that was the plan. But you know what I mean? Like, they did a really good job with it, and I think they did good with like keeping all the characters that crossed over, keeping their aesthetics from their respective show or
mm.
universe or whatever, and bringing it to static. Like, I love how, like, as soon, like, it's like a regular static episode, and then Batman shows up, and then the whole episode gets serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's
The
like,
red sky and clearly everything.
right.
It's even funnier when like in season 3, early in season 3, there's a crossover with Batman, the new Adventures of Batman, Robin Batman, and then like 3 episodes later, there's the Justice League crossover, and it's the Batman from Justice League.
Yes, which is hilarious.
These are completely different characters, or whatever.
Yeah, it's like the designs are totally, but I like how they just act like, not everything's fine. It's just like, yeah, Batman, what's up? And I like how they keep the consistency. Like, when you see Batman again, it's like, yeah, we're on the same, us and Batman, we're cool. We already hung out twice, so like we're good with Batman. And then, and it's like, and then just, with Green Lantern later, it keeps on. And I like how, like, Static, like, really, he really appreciates Green Lantern because, it's like, oh man, like, even at that time, it's like, oh man, other heroes that look like me kind of thing. I think that's a really interesting concept to have this early on. I think that's really cool. And then, yeah, and there's other stuff too that was just interesting. I like how they did the characters. They felt very realistic as far as like, that guy. Like, everyone has had a friend like Richie, or had either a sibling or a friend that was like a sibling, that like Sharon, his sister character, who's just always trying to, like, you know what I mean? You're just kind of like, man, go somewhere. You know what I mean? Type of character. So it's just kind of like, I feel like they did a really good job of just kind of making it feel not necessarily real, but like you felt like a lot of people were realistic, and it worked out a lot of ways. And I really like I like how, a lot of unique villain designs, even though like a lot of the power sets were pretty like standard run of the mill. I like how some of them were very unique, or they used them in unique ways that were different than you would think. I like how, like, for example, I like how, even though Rubber Band Man, for example, like, stretchy powers is nothing new, but I like how it's not just he's can extend. He's literally has like the physical properties of a rubber band. Like, he can like jump and bounce and stuff like that. I think that's, it's better than just Mr. Fantastic / Elastigirl / whatever. It's like an extra like oomph to it. And I think they do a good job of kind of like, making it fresh enough that it doesn't feel like you're every other superhero but different.
Right. So yeah, good show, but I guess it's time.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah. Kind of on that similar vein, I'm going to go ahead and say Batman Beyond.
Yeah, it's about that time. I love the show though so much.
Yeah. It's a good show. It's definitely a worthy successor to the animated series.
Yes.
I like all the unique villains that are in the show. Even though like the villains they do have from the previous show, now aged up 50 plus however many years. Yeah, you've seen more of it than I have. What do you want to say?
No, I've seen it all. I mean, it is one of my favorite shows. It's one of those shows that, like, although every episode doesn't grab you to the same level, there are moments, kind of like Young Justice. Like, there are some moments in this show that like are some of the highest DC anythings I've ever seen. Like, there's an example of like, there's plenty of like, kind of like the whole passing of the torch where it's like, you're Batman now. Like, there's this one episode I love where it's called Babel, where basically one of the villains he uses sound waves, and he's basically going to destroy the city unless Batman surrenders to him. And he makes this public announcement saying that. And there's the whole episode, they're trying to like catch him, and they're watching the news, and everyone in town's like, Batman needs to give himself up. Batman started this fight. It's not our, the villain shouldn't hurt us because Batman, everyone turning on Batman. And, it's kind of the point, Bruce is like, this is trash. These people stink. And then Terry just has this moment where he's like, I didn't get into this because of gratitude or for the people. I did this because it's the right thing to do, essentially. And it's this really powerful moment where like the music go, and it's like that's Batman. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he very much like, it's really good because there's really good character development, because he starts out as just some obnoxious, like, kid. He thinks he's the smartest, he thinks he's smart. He thinks he's like a troublemaker. He's like, whatever, I don't care. Like, seems like the kind of guy who had no problem kicking the villain and like, off the cliff and not caring. And he literally does kill like the first villain in the show. Like, and they kind of just like, hey, don't do that again. kind of thing,
right?
But he really grows into a worthy successor. He really becomes like, he's really smart. He figures out, like, he gets a lot smarter. He becomes Batman. I like how he's not just instantly, oh, I'm Batman. Like, it's like, no, you kind of stink. You get your butt kicked a lot. You don't figure things out. You don't know how to use gadgets. You get lost. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like issues that happen, and by the end of the show, you feel like he's Batman. He shows up, and it's like, yeah, we got this. Batman is here, not Terry Batman, Batman, and it's really well done. And it just makes you. And there's crossovers in this show. Also, there's a future Justice League episode that's really done well, which I won't get into like spoilers for if you haven't seen it, but like, like Superman and other people are like, hey man, like, respect, like, you know what I mean? You made it, bro. We weren't so sure, but like, you're pretty great, dude. So it's done really well. There's some really good. There's a Ra's al Ghul episode that's really, really interesting, and like there's some really good original villains. I love Shriek is great. Ink is really done well. There's a lot of original villains that well, but when they bring the old villains back too, especially, I know it's not part of the show, but the Return of the Joker movie is
incredible,
so good. Like, dude, I will watch that movie anytime. Like, I might watch that today. That was one of the best. It's so well done. Like, it's one of the few movies where I'm just like, this is peak. Like, it's Batman Beyond as a concept, like, if I just heard it, just doesn't sound that great, but man, they delivered. It's done super well. But yeah.
Your turn.
Holy good gracious. Okay. Oh boy. Are we top 10 looks like?
Top 12.
12. God, my friends. There's so much good TV. I think I am going to go back to live action stuff.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to pick Agatha.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, we're at that point where, yes, you are very well done. But also, everything is very well done at this point.
Yeah.
And good.
I really, really like this show. I think it is one of the most creative things Marvel has done. I think it is a perfect successor to WandaVision, where like I love how it begins, like the first episode begins kind of like you would expect a WandaVision episode to go, where it's like a parody of a kind of TV show, but then it goes away from that, but it still has a thing where every episode is its own thing, and I think it still captures the essence of WandaVision very well. Catherine Hahn, incredible. Aubrey Plaza, just the character she plays is just so fun to watch. All the witches in the Coven, I think, are also just very, very good.
It's a good group.
Yeah, I never really loved Wiccan. I just something about him just didn't grab me as much as I was hoping. He was, I don't know. I like I I like the story they had for him. However, that actor clearly, he's a younger actor. I understand that, but this is clearly, if not his first, one of his first um, roles where he has to speak with an American accent, and you can clearly tell that he's struggling with a couple of words here and there. Point right, I don't know why they didn't just make him British, because like he's not like actually Billy grown up. He's this other guy who the spirit possessed. Like, why not just make him British? Whatever. Yeah, like that's really my only complaint. I feel like it ended very strongly. I feel like it it did everything it should have done outside of not having the Darkhold be a factor in the actual story at all was a little weird. Like, they referenced it once, saying that she traded the Darkhold, she traded her son's spirit for the Darkhold, but that didn't actually end up happening. And considering that was the one of the only things we actually knew about Agatha was the fact that you know, she was the owner of the Darkhold for a long time. I feel like it would have been nice to know how she got that, but it's not a huge deal. It doesn't really matter to the story itself, but
it's almost like, why bring it up if you're not going to explain it, kind of deal.
Yeah, like when you had an entire episode about Agatha's backstory, and that never mattered. Seems a little, just have it be where one of the witches she absorbed had it, and she stole it from. Like, it doesn't have to be. It could be mundane, but just you know, especially considering she was constantly being chased, by the idea of death, and she really wanted to save her son from death. I feel like going after the Darkhold would have been a way of her seeking answers, and then it just not being able to help her with that. That could have been something, but it's not a huge deal. I still really liked the show and thought it was, it that and Loki, I think, have two of the strongest endings of any Marvel show. Period. Like, I might even argue that Agatha is more consistently good than Loki. Like, Loki season 2 has, like, the middle is a little weird, but the beginning and ending of that season are fantastic, and all of season 1 is also really, really, really good. So it having two seasons maybe just, and I love Tom Hiddleston so much. I think he just carries that show so much that I do think it's maybe a little better than Agatha, just slightly, but Agatha is still very, very good in its own right. So I don't.
Yeah.
It definitely deserves to be this far, not a little further, but I'm okay with it going.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I do think it is very well done. Don't get me wrong, but I think two of the factors is, like, one, I think, like, having I'm not even sure how to best say this, but I feel like some things that a lot of the MCU shows kind of run into, it's like there's a lot of required watching, it feels like.
Yeah.
For certain things, and I'm not trying to say that's a negative or the show's fault per se, but it's also kind of like it having like, when the show doesn't have to explain who Agatha is or her character that much, because you've seen WandaVision and because you can use that, because again, you're only 8 episodes, right? So it's like
8 or 9, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you don't have a lot of time. So when you can save an episode or two, like, without really exploring, the main character as much as you would need to from just starting out, and you can kind of really flesh out other things that need to be fleshed out, that really helps. But I also feel like that almost not a crutch or any means, but it's like a extra, like, it's something to keep in mind kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just as far as, like, when it comes to ranking, as far as, like, when we're this high up, I guess, which again isn't totally fair at all. But I mean, I think the show is really good. I think there are moments that are a little, I'm not even gonna say weak, just not as strong as the peak, which is natural. But I think it's done very well. I like the direction they go as far as how they make all the different like trials interesting and like very like the costume design and like just things like that are just really interesting. I think the mystery is good. I don't think it's as strong as the mystery in the other MCU shows, like especially like WandaVision and Loki. Like
Mm.
how it's like I think it's still really good, but I don't think it's like I have to see what happens next as far as like how this is gonna go.
Mm.
So it's kind of like but again, I think it is extremely well done.
Yeah. All right. Um,
Okay, is this top 10? I believe.
After my pick, it'll be top 10.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So I think of all the shows here that are left, I think Brave and the Bold might be the only one I could justify not being in the top 10.
Yeah, that is exactly what I would
I
pick, which makes me
adore this
sad.
show so much. It is so funny. It does a great job of introducing you to a bunch of other different DC characters and themes and stuff. It it was actually my first introduction to a lot of different DC characters like Plastic Man, Blue Beetle, even Green Arrow. I didn't really,
Yeah.
uh, Gorilla Grodd. Um, like it does just a very good job at like the main character is always Batman, but there can still be just a lot of you know world-ending stuff going on. Yet it's always about Batman being the best person in the universe, and that's very funny. Like
Yes.
he's essentially it's kind of the thing where like he it can almost kind of read as like a parody of people thinking that Batman is, on that level, even though he's just a dude. But when everyone in the universe itself treats him that way, outside of Captain Atom, who sucks, like like no, Captain Atom's a bad guy. We don't believe him. Like yeah, Batman's the best. I really respect it for doing that. I also kind of respect the show for not just immediately doing Joker stuff. Like I don't even think Joker shows up in the first season, or at least for the first while.
Not for a while.
I don't think he shows up until they start. I could be remembering wrong. I don't think Joker shows up until Owlman gets into our reality. I think the extended episode. I'm pretty sure that's the first time Joker does. Right?
I believe so, yeah. Because I think Joker's one of the first people to notice, like, that's not Batman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but even though Joker wasn't in the show up to that point, he's still the Joker. Like you still know their relationship. Like I think that's fine. But yeah, but because it's not just about Batman, because there are all these other different characters who he interacts with, I don't really care that they don't just do Batman villains. They do, the Brain, Gorilla Grodd, Clock King, all these other different random villains.
Music Meister,
Music Meister is incredible. That's my favorite episode of the show.
Patrick Harris destroyed. That was so good. Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
Amazing.
I do think it's of the shows on here. I do think it is the one that kind of wore out its welcome a little more than it should have. Like, I loved it start to finish, but by the end, I could even when I was younger, I was kind of feeling it was time for it to start wrapping up. I wasn't sad when the last episode aired because they've been going on for a while. They're kind of reusing ideas here and there. Like, it's feel like what had been happening wasn't as interesting. Just it's good. I think it ended in about as as good as it could have, because if it had gone any further, I think it would have probably been further down on our list here.
Yeah, agreed. It's like stop while you're ahead before you start losing value and quality. Agreed. But no, great show overall. And like you said, really introduced you to a lot of characters, even if for a moment. Like I remember to this day, this is how I got introduced to Bawana Beast and like many other characters that I've, otherwise you probably just wouldn't know of, or at least not well, and it does
Wildcat,
a really good job.
Black Canary, even
Right, it's like it keeps like and again they're limited interactions, but they keep a very big impact, and I think that's what it's really trying to do. It's trying to just like show Batman and just all of else of what DC has to offer through that lens, and I think it's done really well.
Yeah, another show with an absolutely banger of a theme song.
True. Yeah, there's some. There's some really good theme songs, and just in general on these lists.
Okay, so we're in the top 10.
Hang on. Before we go into the top 10, can I please get a bathroom break? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, yes.
I apologize. Yes. I thought it would be okay, but I'm also realizing, like, oh yeah, now it makes sense. But yeah, I'll be right back.
Yep.
Okay.
Ready?
Back. Yes, we're back.
All right. So our top 10, we have Batman the Animated Series, The Batman, Justice League Unlimited, Teen Titans, Spectacular Spider-Man, Daredevil, WandaVision, Loki, Invincible, and The Penguin.
Man.
Wow, that is a top 10 right there.
That's what I'm saying. That's a great list right there. Oh man. But we must keep going.
Chisel away.
Chisel away at my childhood, my dreams, my more recent, I guess not childhood, my recent life, I guess. Let's see. Oh, man. I don't want to, but dude, this is hard. Like I can't really justify one over the other at any point, and it's kind of like, man, adding the live action stuff really made this hard. I'm not gonna lie, because like I've never thought about these like, oh, which is better, and now I have to think about it, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know, because like I have an idea of a top 5, but I'm also like okay, but we have to get there.
Exactly. Like you don't.
Oh,
You like. I have a feeling I know what the top three are gonna be, but I don't know what order I'm gonna which order I'm gonna
right?
get there. Uh, hmm.
Man. Goodness gracious. Okay. So for me,
Hmm.
I am going to say the Batman. And my reasoning is, at least for me, this has always been the second best Batman show. And I know that's an amazing achievement, but there's only 10 shows left. And in my mind, if you are, even if you're done extremely well, you're, in my mind, it's not better than the animated series. I know a lot of people grew up with this one over the animated series,
Hmm.
but for me personally, this one will always be second. And because of that, I feel like it only has so high of a ceiling. I
Hmm.
love how it's done so many of the characters with better redesigns for a lot of the
Hmm.
villains. Like, I think Mr. Freeze's redesign is
So
amazing.
good.
I love Killer Croc as he's designed in this show. I really like how the show uses other characters that aren't used as often very well. I really like their use of Hugo Strange, for example. I think he's in. I think Black Mask in this show is done way better than almost anything else he's been in, because half the stuff he's also been in, he's not. Well, for example, he's not even Black Mask in Arkham Origin, so it's kind
Yeah.
of like there's not a lot of other Black Mask stuff. So I really think he's done well in this show. I like how it really does. I like how the show takes its time before it adds in assistance for Batman as far as other
Mm.
sidekicks, but it does eventually do that. And I really like how they're kind of, I mean, it works because, they're younger, obviously, but it works because that's the kind of, the show is still, it's a serious show, but it still has its moments where it's like, yeah, he's also, it's a kid show and it
Mm.
works. I do like, I love Alfred in this show.
Mm.
I think they do a really good job of making Batman more of just a guy who can fight. There's a lot of detective skills. There's a lot of like other elements that we really look into. Like, I like that a lot because I feel like so often Batman is just, oh, I can beat anybody just because I'm really good at fighting.
Mm.
Especially like, when you really like, there's so many times in this show where he essentially has to go back to the lab and like, because like, he
Yes.
fights Bane, gets rocked. Okay, now I need a machine. Oh, I'm trying to fight Firefly. You can't catch him. Have to go to the lab. Mr. Freeze freezes my suit. Gotta go to the lab. Even like the like made up, gearhead, the like random speed drag race guy.
Um.
Gotta get a new, yeah, and then I get a new entire Batmobile. That is the new Batmobile for the rest of the show, by the way,
Mm.
which is awesome and like huge continuity, which I love. And they do that really like so many times. It's like Batman. It's not even like Batman loses. It's like Batman learns from his mistakes more so than loses, and
Mm.
I love that because it really ties into the rest of the show. And he does new things that matter later. And he learns, and he has character development. He learns that, like, maybe it isn't just me. Maybe having, whether it's Yin or, Gordon or now, literal sidekicks to help me out isn't a bad thing. And it leads to me help form the Justice League and all this stuff. So it's a lot. It's a lot that really they do well with Batman's character, and I like how, when they do add in the Justice League, I do like their some of the tie-in episodes more than others. But I do think there are some, like, I think the Superman crossover episode's really strong, for
Mm.
example. Like, I really like what they do that. And although Superman and Batman kind of feel like they switch personalities for a while, which is always a little
Yeah.
odd to me. Because, like, but otherwise, I really like how they do it. And they keep a lot of the like voice acting from the original animated series too, which is always a win
I
in
do
my
find it
book.
very funny that Luthor is just voiced by Clancy Brown and Batman and Superman is voiced by George Newbern. It's just the same Batman. It's
Yeah, and
just the same
Lois is, I
Superman.
think it's Donna Delaney. You know, it's like it's very much like, yeah, we know what we're doing here, and I like it. It works because,
Yeah.
like, that's, I mean, that is Superman. That is, in my mind, that's always going to be Lex Luthor. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it works, and like, but yeah, I think the show does a great job. I think this is the best follow up for like the animated series you could have had for sure. I mean, it
Yes.
does things different in a way that's its own, but it still keeps a lot of the core elements well. There's some really well written episodes that I really like some
Mhm.
standouts. Like I know like what that like the like a lot of the Hugo Strange ones especially were
Mhm.
really good about like really getting into the mind of Batman. Like there's the one where it's like Hugo Strange uses this like neurotoxin to basically make Batman think it's a zombie apocalypse,
Yep.
and he almost like kills everybody because he's so like it's such a good episode because it really just it's one of those episodes where you just like hop in, you're like, okay, we're just going, like it's just from the jump, we're just doing some
Mhm.
crazy stuff. I will say, for me personally, the whole season 4 with the whole alien invasion thing for me was kind of eh. And the reason I say that isn't because there was an alien invasion, it's because they were kind of just random. Like, it didn't feel like it. I don't know. Like, I feel like in the DC universe, there's a lot of options where it comes to aliens.
Mhm.
And it felt like they kind of just, I don't know if the joining's actually like that real or how much lore it has, but it kind of felt like you could have easily made this a more notable species or alien thing in DC and made it work.
Right.
But
Could have
it
been
kind of
Batman.
felt
It could
like,
have been Starro. It could have been
yeah,
any
like it
other.
could have
Yeah.
been, yeah, like could have been anything really. And it kind of just felt kind of okay. Like, I mean, like again, like
The
it
Reach,
served its
whatever. Yeah.
purpose, but it was kind of just like nameless, faceless alien army go.
Yeah.
And like that was, that's just one thing. And then they come back the little next season, which is kind of like, okay, like I
Yeah.
guess. But
Yeah.
anyway, but all in all, the show's very well done. I love the art design. The action's really good. I even like the like I really like how the show does more with Bruce Wayne too. I think a lot of
Mm.
times you can tell how good a Batman show does is how well it understands not just Batman but also Bruce Wayne, because he's not, I mean, he does a good job of essentially playing his character, especially in the early seasons. They really focus on like making sure Bruce Wayne does what Bruce Wayne does best, as far as, playing the part ideally as like, oh yeah, rich billionaire, but I want to help, but also like, I'm just a young rich guy. I kind of just do
Yeah.
my thing, but also he uses his he's smart. He's not just a guy who can punch. He has, he's really genius. He's all this stuff. So I really like it a lot.
Yeah. I agree with almost everything you said to a T. I love the art design
Hmm.
so much. Just I think that design just makes everything feel very timeless. Like it doesn't really feel like it came from any one era. Like that, it'll look good forever. I think the every single character just looks as good as they've ever looked. Um, I I really like I I like how this show is clearly has certain points where Batman only dresses like that, or he gets a new suit, or a new car, or a new gadget specifically so they can make a toy of that. But it still
Yes.
works in the show. You know, it still makes sense within the show. Um,
Hmm.
I yeah, every single villain is very good. I do find it a little weird how like by the time we're like midway through season two, they've already used the vast majority of the big hitters. So then the rest of the show is just those hitters over and over and over and over and
Again.
over again. Like
Yeah.
Penguin, Clayface, Joker is almost every episode, which is fine as Joker, but Riddler, like they have so many repeats. And then in season four, it's just a bunch of like Justice League stuff going on. And then
Mhm.
you never did anything with League of Shadows. You never did anything with Two-Face.
Yeah.
Like, there's several
Yeah.
different major Batman characters that just are never used, and I find that a little odd. It's not a huge deal, but by mid season 2, you would think they would introduce Harvey Dent. That didn't happen, so whatever. Um, I will say, by this show, it essentially has 3 different episodes that I think, at least 3 that I can think of, that easily could have been the final episode, and I would have been satisfied. The last
Mm.
episode, he's finally a part of the Justice League, and then go from there. The 2 episodes before that is the episode where Bruce's old other billionaire friend, who also has a young
Oh
dwarf who
yeah.
like dresses up as like and like essentially lets the villains do whatever they want in order so they can take down Batman for some reason. It made
Yes.
more sense at the time, but just the way that episode ended felt very final. Like Joker just shows up, takes them out and just leaves them, and then Robin's like, "So what's?" He's like, and then something Robin says just feels like very much like a final line. Um, and then not the last episode of season 3, but the one right before the 2-parter finale of season 3 is the one where a guy voiced by Ron Perlman, who was clearly supposed to be Slade, but they couldn't use Slade. Leo's like, has a sword and a mask and a cool nano suit. Like, clearly, I feel that was supposed to I feel that was supposed to be Slade, but whatever. Uh, like he basically kidnapped every single Batman villain, and then
Hmm.
Batman beats that guy, and all the villains get out, and
Yes.
then Batman, Robin, and Batgirl just take
Take
them
them
all out.
all. That's so satisfying, dude. Like,
It was so satisfying, and like, especially since they didn't add any new Batman villains after that, like as far as like major Batman villains after that point. I feel that was a very like final episode. But then they introduced Martian Manhunter, and then season 4 had all the Justice League stuff, and once it started being more about Justice League stuff, it kind of stopped feeling like a Batman show,
yes.
and I didn't really care for that as much. Um, like especially since my favorite aspect of the show is Batman interacting with his villains.
Yes.
But when it's Batman trying to take down Sinestro, like I just don't really care as much.
Yeah. I.
But every other aspect of the show, I is like pretty much peak when it comes to like every single checkbox, to the point where it's so funny how like I love almost every single episode, but if there was a particularly great episode, specifically the one I'm thinking of is the one where it's like 100 years in the future, and those people are like, they found the Batcave and they're like trying to figure out what happened here. Like flashback to basically Dark Knight Returns, Batman taking on Mr. Freeze. Um, that episode was written by Greg Weisman. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that makes the Spectacular Spider-Man. Yeah, he made this. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's always the thing. It's like, oh man, I really liked this episode of Avatar. Yeah, Dave Filoni. Yeah, okay, well,
Yeah.
there it is. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And like I said, most episodes of the Batman I absolutely adored, but I if there was like a really really good one, there's a pretty good chance it was written by Greg Weisman. So that it's cool that
hmm
like he made the Batman, or at least a couple episodes of the Batman, and then he went on to make Young Justice. Like that makes sense. um, yeah, I personally think it deserves to go a little further, but
that's fair.
when you have this competition, I'm not going to save it. Like I yeah, I don't even
You
think it's
have a
top.
save.
Nah, yeah, it's. I'm only going to save something at this point if I think it should be like top 3, and you take it too early. But I don't.
Okay.
As much as I love it, I'm okay with it going. It made it top
Yeah.
10. So that's good enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. And then there were 9.
I think uh, I'm currently between 2, and they're extremely close.
Hmm.
But I think I have to go Loki.
Oof. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I adore this show. Season 1 is fantastic. Just every single thing that show does is amazing. The beginning of season 2 also fantastic. Like I said, the final episode of Loki is some of the strongest ending of any Marvel thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But episodes like 2 through 4 ish of season 3 kind of felt like we were just meandering along, just kind of wasting time until we could get to the last episode. Um, so that kind of brings it down a little bit, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I do think it is still a spectacular show.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, it's really good. Again, like you said earlier, Tom Hiddleston does an amazing job. I really like Owen Wilson's performance in both of
Mm-hmm.
these seasons. I think he does a great job being like really a compelling, realistic character in a very non-realistic scenario, which I think is done really well. I
Mm-hmm.
really like how there's so much, especially in the first season. There's so much. You're like, what is going on? Where are we? What is this? Like everything. Because I remember like when this show was originally coming out, and I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Like I have no idea where this is going, and then you're immediately sucked in. You're like, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we're doing, but I'm here for it. And
Yep.
there's the eerie background conspiracy of the TVA. You know something's not right, but you're not sure what. And it's so interesting how they get into it. And obviously, I think another part of it that kind of suffers because of other reasons outside of the show's controls. Obviously, the Kang stuff, which like clearly was set up for something that is not happening at this point. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like,
But I do kind of
well,
like how every single time Kang has shown up, it's you can kind of write off as like, okay, this it's over. Like, Ant-Man defeated him. I guess at the end of this, like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to every timeline and make sure Kang doesn't show up. So like, if he showed up again, like, yeah, it would make sense. But if he doesn't show up, I think it still makes enough sense. But I would have liked
yeah,
him to show up in order for everything to like actually matter. you know?
yeah, but I mean, that's not, it's kind of like, especially with like Ant-Man 3, it's like, is that really what the takeaway? Like, oh
No,
no, like, right? Like,
no.
that's,
That.
yeah, that's not what I left the theater thinking. I'll put it that way.
Mhm.
But But yeah, like but other giving everything it was, like it does a really good job story wise. I really like how, especially in the end of the first season, it really just everything culminates together, and like you really find out about the TVA and all the stuff. And then in season 2, I like how really it like as we get new characters and further explore what it means for like the like main timeline and everything, it kind of goes into the lore. And then like as we're moving towards the end where I where like where I forget the actor's name, but the guy, the smart, I forget the character's name, but the like smart guy or whatever who's
Oh
trying to
yeah.
teach him like how to be, yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal. He does a great job. He's like, how long would it take me to become, a master of not genius of this? He's like, oh, it would take, years and centuries. And Loki's just like, well, like I love how it's not even like I can't, like he's just kind of like a, well, better roll up the sleeves for this one kind of
Mhm.
deal. But
Gotta do it Groundhog
man,
Day.
yeah, that literally, and I think it's so funny because it reminds me. It feels like it's like he's doing like a Dude Perfect video. He's just like, or like like one of those like perfect trick shot videos where he just does it
Mhm.
100,000 times and eventually like, oh, it worked finally. Like,
Yeah. Point
So
where
yeah,
when we're doing the successful run, he's like, "Don't drop it, don't stop, we hit this button, not that button, this button."
yeah. He's like, wait, don't put it down. You won't be able to pick it back up. He's seen it happen so many times. It's just like, oh man. But no, man. But no, great show. Like seriously.
Yeah.
Oh man, just the best. Oh my gosh. And then there
Your
were
turn.
man. Oh boy. 8 things left. Mm. Everything's gosh, this is borderline impossible, I'm not gonna lie. Why? I can't. Oh, dude, this is so difficult. Like, what? I'm thinking. I can't. This is too interesting. Okay. I'm really. Hmm. Hmm. How is this so? How do you do this so quick? This is so difficult.
I've sold my soul to make some of these choices.
At this point, you're just like something like everything I'm saying is gonna piss somebody off, and it's just like at this point, it's just like, well, we gotta make a choice eventually.
Gotta eat dinner eventually.
Yeah, right. It's like, hey man, dinner's getting cold. Come on now. Oh my gosh. All right. Well. Dude, how is this hard? Okay, let me just. I am going to say WandaVision. And I don't feel good about saying that, but
That was my next pick, unfortunately.
I know.
Really, really like this show.
I know. Like I'm literally like I don't even know how I can say it with a straight face, man. Like it's really good. I mean, the amount of effort that was put into this show is insane. I mean, they literally made like 10 TV shows making this one show.
Yeah.
Like how they go from era to era, changing the art style, the colors, the outfits, how they shoot it, the angle, how they don't even use, they only use the wide shots in the first episode. Like it's so like it's one of those things where like it's already a great show and well written, but like cinematically, like if you're a lover of just film, you're like, this is the greatest thing ever made. Like it's like
Yep.
they really just write a love letter to anyone who watches TV. It's really well done because every it's like it goes from like Dick Van Dyke to I Love Lucy to freaking I mean like every sitcom ever to like Malcolm in the Middle eventually. Like they just do a really good job of just capturing every decade of television. The mystery is amazing
Mm.
because you have no idea what's going on to the point where you kind of forget about it until there's these very random, eerie moments that just stick with you. And then they just go back like nothing happened. Like I will never remember, like forget in the first episode how they just like stop that, like it's just like that crazy thing happened, and they just cut to well everything worked out. It's like
Mm.
what was that? Like
Or literally like pausing and like rewinding the footage in episode 3 to like to stop bitching from saying what he was gonna say. Like that's
yes,
I literally thought my
like
TV glitched when that happened.
dude. What I'm saying, and like and like the Vision finds out, like, bro, what is going on?
Mm.
Like, he's getting gaslit, and he's like, nah, bro, like this is crazy. Like, oh my god, like there's so much involved in that. Like, it's so interesting, and it's just done so well. The acting's really good. I mean, there are some slight moments that are a little like with like I mean, the whole Pietro fake out thing that ends up not being anything
Yeah.
is a little annoying,
Like the
which
head
is
of
kind of like,
sword guy was a little weird.
yeah. Which I mean, are we even? I mean, I know Sword kind of. I mean, I don't know. Like, are we even talking about that? Like, is that even still a thing? Are we still doing anything with that? Like,
Yes, I mean the Marvels like did
yeah,
the space station was head by sword.
yeah. I guess that's true, but it's just like I don't know. I don't even. Yeah, I don't know, but it's just like stuff like that, and then like the ending is not bad, but it's also a little MCU live action ending
Yeah,
vibey,
but it
I
is a Marvel
guess.
show, so I don't have an issue with that necessarily.
Yeah,
But
but like
mm,
that doesn't does it really give it a pass though? It's like I
no.
don't know. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Let's, but I mean, it's done really well. I love, again, Catherine Hahn does an amazing job along with others. That's just really well done. All the characters feel very real. Even the boys, like, I mean, they did
Mm,
a really good job of feeling like kids. Like, they didn't, like it wasn't one of those things where you're taken out of it by like, oh, that's clearly a kid actor. Like they did a really good job playing their characters, I think,
oh
even though
yeah.
they weren't like super duper like give them their Oscar now. They just did a really good job of not taking you out of it, which I think really helped at this point.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, I like that
Amazing,
show a lot.
fantastic show.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess it's time.
It is time. We are slowly moving along. Your move, sir.
This next pick, I have literally zero reason specifically other than there's only one season of it out. Penguin,
Oh,
I
oh
guess.
wow, yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I guess, right? Right? There's just not enough content.
Like it is an absolutely incredible show.
It's amazing.
Uh, like oh, I'm blanking on his name. Who
Big.
plays the penguin? What is his name?
What the
Colin
gosh.
Farrell.
Yes.
Yeah, Colin Farrell does a just incredible show. Like
Really so
just
good.
like that's the kind of vibe I wanted more from Creature Commandos. Just people who are bad
Bad.
to the core of their being, and just being
Not
the worst version of
no.
themselves.
And actively getting worse. Like
Yes.
just the like I man, just the
Yeah.
worst.
Like
Oh my
yeah, but
gosh.
then everything with Sophia was just so gripping. Um, yeah, like it's really good.
Yeah.
I know that Colin Farrell doesn't like being in that suit, so I don't know if we're gonna get more seasons of it. But considering they're not getting the actual next movie until 2 years from now, you have time to make another season, right?
We got time. I'm not going anywhere, so
Yeah.
that fan interest definitely isn't going down. So
Yeah.
please continue if you want to.
Yes.
But no, it's done very well. I love it's like again, they really took everything from the Batman, somatically, and then just were like, all right, we're making a show about it. And it's really done well. I love how it really just gives you a front row seat to just the scum of Gotham, like straight up. Like everyone in this show is a complete terrible person. They have done horrible things with no remorse. They are continuing to do such. People get wasted left and right. It is so well acted, and I really like. Sophia does a really good job. I think honestly, I mean, outside of Penguin himself, I think Sophia's really the most compelling character because like you really kind of start to get inside her mind. And at first, you're like, oh, she's just this innocent child who was caught up in this. And then the further in you get, you're like, bro, she might be the worst of all of them. like this
For real.
isn't like that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like she's really just deranged, and she does some crazy stuff, just straight up. And like, and she does, and like the actress is such a good idea, like so good with acting. I know we talked about like like the acting with your eyes. And like really showing all the emotions and like the way she goes from horrified to disgusted to angry in half a second is just so well done. And it just feels so real. And it's like, man, like this, she's really intimidating. This is really something, And I just think it's really great. And then Vic kind of being like just this guy who's, again, he's just kind of caught up in it. But then after a while, you kind of like, oh, man, you root for the guy. Like, come on, man, we can do this. And then we made it out and it all worked out. And then it did. Like, I mean, I've never been so like I have never in anything I've watched ever been so like no, no, like literally like yelling no, you like you why like and again it goes back to he's just a terrible person. There's no like there wasn't no. It's not like Vic secretly double crossed him or it's like he's just a bad dude. That's it.
Yep.
There's no nothing. I mean, there's no. It's just like he's just a bad guy. And again, like I love that because at the end of the day, this is a villain show. This is about the worst of the worst, and this is why he is the worst of the worst. Because after all of that, he's still just because I'm evil is essentially the theme of the show, and it's great. Oh my gosh, so good. I gotta watch that again.
All right.
Oh my gosh, that was rough.
What I get to watch again is you struggle to pick another pick.
I know. It's great. Now I have to decide who's not a top 5 show, which is
yeah, that is what we are.
so difficult because they're all, let's be honest, they're all top 5 shows, even though there's 6 of them. And oh man. Well, I'm stuck between two because again, both very much nitpicks, but there's like 2 thoughts where I'm like, well, this did that, but also it does this, which is better than anything I've ever seen. But also, this did that, and that was, but is that really, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. yeah, but like, doesn't matter. You have to choose. Like, oh, my children. Oh my goodness. Yeah, as far as perfect show go, this is all everything that is still listed is pretty much S tier. So I would think so. Man. Oh man, this is. Well. All right.
Mm-hmm.
While in overall quality, it is one of the best things I've ever seen in general. There are other factors, while maybe not in its control, do limit it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, oh my gosh, like, okay, so even though this is one of the best things I've probably ever seen, and it's done very well, and I love everything about it. So, I don't even, it doesn't even sound right. I don't know. Why? Why do we do this? This is so painful.
I put mm-hmm.
So, well, I don't know because I
Uh-huh.
don't. This is so difficult, dude. I am like, no, I can't. I just, oh my gosh, dude, how are we doing? It's,
Uh-huh.
it's like I can teach a college level course on some of this, and I'm just like, it's not good enough. Like, I don't.
Just just tell me
All
where
right,
tell me where your head's at. Just what do you think?
I just, I'm trying, dude. It's hard because like you have to get incredibly nitpicky at this point
Uh-huh.
because it's like, oh well, I thought that like, like you know what I mean. It's like at this
Mm-hmm.
point we're deciding. It's like deciding factors over the smallest of things, but you kind of have to because there's no other alternative at this point.
Right.
And all right, so again, like I said, because I love the show, I adore everything about this show. But for reasons outside of its control, it is short and it is not as long. And I love Spectacular Spider-Man
Oh
more than
no.
anything. I know. But it's amazing. I know. It's so good. It is the Spider-Man show. It does everything right. I love the
Mm,
animation. The voice acting's top tier. The theme song's a banger. Everything about it is great. And I love it. But it's so short. And again, it's not the show's fault. The show was very successful. The show did a lot of things right, but things happen. And because of that, we only got what we got. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger and it does things really well. I love its versions of so many villains, of main characters. I love
mm,
how the dilemmas are real and it makes total sense. I love how they handle the symbiote. I think they do it the best there out of anything. I think it's just so well done. It is the Spider-Man everything. It is what other shows should try to be as far as Spider-Man, as far as superheroes, as far as everything. It gets the jokes right. It gets the action right. It gets the villains. They understand the villains. And some of them, yes, are stupid and annoying, but others are so well done. And it's so interesting how they just really play off each other well. They really do a good job of, even in the moments where characters you think are one note surprisingly have crazy depth, because then we get pep talks from Flash Thompson out of
yeah.
nowhere that are like hitting close to home, and you're like, dude, that's so well written. And and then it's like, oh man, this is so good. And you get crazy fake outs like me, who understands from birth that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. And the show convinces me that I'm wrong by gaslighting me. I have never been gaslighted by a fictional character so hard in my entire life that I believe them just to be proven wrong. It's so crazy. I legit was like, oh no, it's Harry. It has to be. There's no psych. It was Norman the whole time. It was supposed such a strong fake out. Just elite levels of fake out. Such good writing. It's so amazing. But it's such a limited show and it's so few episodes and I love it to death and it is the Saturday morning cartoon in so many ways. But I wish there was more of it, and there needs to be more of it. And there are some choices I don't entirely agree with, but they're not bad choices. They're just different than my opinion, which is totally fine because the show as a whole is S tier. But at this point, everything here is S tier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. I do think that this show, I do think that it wrapped up about as well as it could have given the circumstances.
Yes.
Considering one of the last episodes is basically the culmination of the turf war between Silvermane, Tombstone, and Hammerhead. They had their little squabble, and then all three of them got taken down. And then the next episode wrapped up Goblin. Yeah, Norman Osborn kind of teased he's still around, but I don't feel like that's a strong enough cliffhanger to really drive more seasons. Really, obviously there's more stuff they could do, but as far as all of the major storylines were more or less wrapped up, so I think ending where it didn't feel like something was missing. I just wish there was more of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree with everything you said. It is, spectacular. So, but I personally wouldn't have picked it yet, but we're at that point where I can't save it. So, yeah.
And I don't know, man. Yeah. We're just like,
okay.
Oh man.
Here's where my head is at. Okay. If we had done this process 2 weeks ago, Invincible probably wouldn't have even come close to making it this far.
Bro, that's what I was saying earlier. Literally, but dude.
That last episode.
We'll talk, again.
We'll do a full-on review later next week.
But bro, I mean, yeah. Right?
That episode alone makes us a top 5 series, and it
that's what I'm saying.
Man, it's made me remember why I absolutely adore this show. I like superheroes. I like superheroes, but I've never been just absolutely totally engrossed by a brand new, section of comics outside of Marvel and DC as I was with Invincible from the jump, from the,
Yes. First episode just grabs you.
Yeah, first 10 minutes of seeing, of the apparently expendable, not Justice League finding smaller twins. That was such a good introduction to this world. And then, Mark developing his powers, and then, Omni-Man, just everything from season 1, even for how kind of weird season 2 went wholesale, it is still a very good season. And season 3 is even better. It is everything I like about superheroes, even though it's not within Marvel and DC. That is not that doesn't make it less than. It is really good. So
yeah, it's done extremely well.
Yeah. Yeah, but however, all that to say, because it is not DC or Marvel, my love for it is not as strong as these other things. Therefore, I think
It's
it'd
time.
be in the top five is a good enough spot, but no further.
That's fair. Yeah, I would have probably picked that next, honestly. So that's fair. I'm one episode behind
Okay.
actually. So I actually don't know how, but from everything building towards and
Mm-hmm.
everything, I'm like, yeah, we're back, baby.
Yeah,
Like
we're back. We're still back.
we're so back. Yeah, it's yeah.
Like anybody who's been complaining about the budget or the animation looking bad up to this point, like all the budget went into the to that last
It's like, oh,
episode.
there.
Like
He's like,
just the way hair is animated that last episode is significantly better than the previous episode.
you're just like, wait a minute, I thought you said we got a boost in budget. Oh, there it
It's
is.
all that last
All of it.
all of it.
They were like, wait, we have to make how many episodes? Oops. Like, I mean,
Mm.
oh my gosh. No, but yeah, this show is the epitome of a superhero show. It's does the realism so well, but still it's that perfect line between like fantasy hero world and the real world where like yes you know powers are real but also like if this was real people would be paper and they are in
Mm-hmm.
this show. It's crazy the
Yeah.
amount of just well choreographed and animated carnage is insane. I mean there are some of the like again I'm a big anime guy
Mm-hmm.
and to this day, the most violent animated thing I have ever seen is the train thing. Like that is the most like I've seen I mean listen I've seen a lot of like crazy stuff happen.
Mm,
I'm like that is like the most violent thing I've ever seen. That was that's so well thought out, so horribly well animated. Like just, I mean, like I never thought animation would could give someone PTSD, but here we are. It's like I mean that was
yeah.
insane. Just like the amount, and again, the writing's really well done. The voice acting is S tier. I mean, they
Mm.
go all out with everyone. They got the best people as far as like people who are known for live action, people known for voice acting specifically, and like they get everybody because they know like get the team together. And again, these characters feel so real. Even though they're anime, it's like, man, you everything they say, their emotions, they're like everything they do just feels so real. And the show does a great job of just immersing you in this world immediately. You feel every punch, you feel everything. It's literally walking into a comic book.
Mm.
It's just really really good, man.
Yep.
It's really good. The whole thing. It's just, yeah. Yeah, it's so
All
good.
right. Okay.
Okay.
And then
All right.
there's four left.
Okay. All right. Oh man. Oh man. More left, dude. Man. All right. So I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be completely like biased on this, and even though it's amazing and I
Mm.
love everything about it, I'm picking Daredevil
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
I
That's
like
fair
Daredevil.
too.
Daredevil's excellent in all aspects. It is incredibly well shot, written, directed, acted. Like, bro, I listen. They crush everything about the show. The fight choreography alone deserves a statue.
Yes.
But it is like man, it's just there's really nothing really bad to say about the show. It's
Mm.
paced very well. The hero is great. The main characters are really good together. The baby Kingpin's done so well, and how it just builds up, it builds, and the confrontation, how it introduces other characters in this universe, like Punisher and other people just get in here. It's just done so naturally, but also in a way that doesn't distract you from remembering whose show it is. It's just really well done. And I'm really glad that it's coming back. It's already back, actually, because
Mm.
I think last week it dropped. And yeah, we're back. Like
Yeah.
legitimately. Like I don't I know you're not caught up, but I mean, dude, like, yeah, we're
Mm.
good. Like,
Yeah. We're
don't
barely through
worry.
season 2, and it's
Dude,
good.
bro, dude, you don't even know, bro. Like
Yeah.
like you do, but you don't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just like, oh man, like because I remember being so skeptical about this because I had a feel I thought it was going to be like another Arrow, kind of like a,
Mm.
we couldn't, we're just taking a character in live action and just kind of seeing what we can do. And man, I was so wrong. Where Arrow walked, they drove. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they are just it's so great, dude. I mean, they really took the time to just absolutely get every aspect right. You really get a good understanding of all the characters and how they see things, pardon the pun, and like, just like all these just it weaves together so well. And I'm so glad they're going more. It's like, a show is good when they make like 5 spin-off shows out of it. Like, you know what
For
I
real.
mean? Like
Yeah.
actually. And like even if the spin-offs aren't all to the same tier, it still says a lot about the show. And it's just so good, dude. Yeah, I recommend it to anybody who likes superheroes
Yeah.
that's not 10 or younger.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay. All right. So our top three, we have Batman
Top
the Animated
three.
Series, Justice League Unlimited, and Teen Titans.
Good luck.
So here, you're gonna hate me for this because I'm gonna use your own logic against you. Okay.
Why would you do that?
So hang on. I have good reason for this. When we did our last video like this, where we went over the best DC animated movie, it came down
Okay.
between Justice League Doom and Batman
Yes.
Under the Red Hood. And you
Yes.
specifically said, because Under the Red Hood is only Batman, that makes it lesser than Justice League Doom.
Why would you do that to me? How do you remember that?
So,
By that
all
logic,
things
I
equal, I
assume.
feel like by your own standards, Batman the
Well,
Animated Series should probably go next.
oh my god. You watch Daredevil once and you think you're a lawyer, huh? No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, oh
It's an
my
amazing
gosh.
show, but
Dude,
I really like Justice League.
it's the godfather of superhero shows. I mean, not just cartoon. I mean, definitely cartoons, but really just superhero shows. It is
Uh,
the reason all these other shows exist, in my opinion, outside of, Batman 66 for obvious reasons. But I mean,
mm,
yeah, I mean, this is the show that every, especially animated show, is trying to be like, all right, how do we get to this level where we are just, 30 years later, we're still talking about this show like it's like, it's the standard.
mm,
It's timeless. The characters, the designs, the voice acting. The voice acting was so good. They used it for 20 plus years in
yeah.
every, and not just, in everything. It's like you got to the point where if it wasn't Kevin Conroy, people didn't want to watch it. Like it's literally that good.
Mm,
It's iconic now. It's like, that, and then, like you said earlier, like the red sky backgrounds, the blimps, like all the like super iconic like stuff where you just look for a half a second, you're like, oh, that's Batman. Like you just know.
mm,
It's just it's so good. And like how good the villains are done and like their stories and how you just characters who no one knew or cared about are now so like Mr. Freeze getting an entire origin story that now has just completely overtaken whatever the original one was, which because we don't know because the new one's so good that nobody cares about the original one anymore. So it's that good. It just retcons everything. You add in Harley Quinn, who is now arguably like top 5 most popular DC character now just because.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, just the show does so much for just not just DC, but just for superheroes as a whole that you really can't tell the story of anything superhero wise without talking about it. And, you know, I mean, for comics, everyone reads comics in Kevin Conroy's voice, even if you didn't watch the show like that. Like, it's so. The influence is immeasurable. The amount of times I have watched this and the Adventures of Batman and Robin and the new Batman adventure, just every episode, memorizing lines and oh my god, dude, just so cool.
Yeah,
so cool. Yeah, sorry, that was about a tear. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, definitely, easily top 3. Like that's not even a question.
Yeah, has to be.
Yeah.
And yet, here we go.
Okay. Top 2 and your pick.
Okay. Well,
I mean, is it a conversation? Like, do we need to kid ourselves that is the Teen Titans win?
I mean, at this point, it's literally just like, I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. It's literally like there is no. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just like you just want to talk about both. Like,
yeah. Like, I mean, we've probably talked about Teen Titans for, I would say, charitably 10 hours across this entire
most likely at least
podcast series. Like, was one of the first, you know, superhero cartoons I ever, if not the first superhero cartoon I ever saw. It cemented Robin as just one of the coolest comic book characters known to man. It cemented Slade, you know, Deathstroke as one of the best comic book villains of all time.
To this day,
yeah,
Slade is I would argue probably the I don't know if I could say I don't know like either Slade or Mark Hamill Joker is probably the best comic book villain in a show ever. Like just so good, dude. Like every single line was so sinister. Just being in the shadows and seeing only half of the math, like just epic, bro.
Yeah,
just
like,
absolutely epic.
Just so many iconic characters, iconic villains. Just there's just so much about the show that I just absolutely adore. I do, you know, I do feel like Justice League, just as a show, it is phenomenal in its own right. I legitimately think like that show is about as good as a Justice League show made in the early 2000s possibly could have been. Like the fact that they started out with the original 7 and then developed into, you know, Justice League Unlimited having it. And there were certain episodes that are definitely worse than others.
Yes.
Like there's a couple of episodes that are focused around Supergirl that I don't really love. There's a couple of episodes with Hawk and Dove that just I don't care for. But when the episodes hit, they hit
like a truck, bro.
Everything with Cadmus, phenomenal.
The build-up was so hype because you knew what they were building towards, and just oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, just the team dynamics, it's.
I mean, and playing off stuff from previous shows, and they bring in Professor Hamilton to Cadmus, and all this there's so much lore, and Amanda Waller's just done perfectly. She's so evil, but like, and there's this like constant like one-upping each other with Batman and Amanda Waller, and then there's Luthor. Of course, there's Luthor because there's always Luthor, and it's just like, oh, it's so evil, and it's like, oh my god, it becomes present, and nothing you can do about it. It's just like, dude, this is so well done.
Having all of these villains that have either been previously established or just thrown in the background just to have villains like actually battling each other there at the end is just also very satisfying.
So slick, bro. Just, oh my god, it's just, oh man, and just, it's done so well. And then of course, anything Batman does is awesome, just because it's so cool because he just like, there's no like, it just doesn't explain. It's just, oh yeah, Batman just got him. What happened? Batman. Oh well, he's gone. Oh man. And I like how the show just understands, like, yeah, well, Batman's on it. Oh, okay, we're good. Cool. Oh man. Oof.
Yeah, but so just to confirm, you do wait. Which one are you actually picking to take off?
Yeah, you said Teen Titans wins, right?
I mean, that's what I think, but it's your
right. No, that's what I was. Okay. I was also saying. That's why I was no. I mean, well, that's why I thought we were talking about Justice League because we were like, it's great, but yeah. I mean, again, this is really close for me, and the reason that I pick one over the other is literally just because I think, like kind of like you said, like I think Unlimited does this thing where, yes, the highs are as high as possible because when you get the whole league together to fight Darkseid or the Legion of Doom or whatever, it is so cool. But there are a lot of episodes with kind of just, messing around with whatever, and I don't know. It's hard because
like the stuff with the question, I didn't love individual episodes, but then the culmination of that with him being captured by Cadmus and Superman fighting Captain Atom.
Bro.
Incredible.
So stuck. And I love how later, like as the show first started, they really nerfed Superman, but later they are like, you know what? Nah, Superman's Superman. And I love how like he just breaks into Cadmus, casually walks in front of infinite gunfire because again, it's Superman. 30 guys tackle him. Throws 30 guys because again, like it's just like thank you. That is exactly how anyone trying to stop Superman should go. Unfortunate. Like it's like, oh man, and it's so good because you find out like, wait, Hamilton's involved. Wait, so all the way back in Superman the animated series with the whole Supergirl thing from so much ago that if you didn't do the reading, you're like, what? It's like, nah, this is all adding up. And then when it's revealed with Brainiac, Brainiac's actually inside Luthor, because remember in an episode like a million years ago where he casually shoots Luthor, but Luthor doesn't die, but you thought, oh, that's because it's a kid's show? Nah! That was planned. Like, he's like, no, see, you're not a 12th level Implement. Of course you thought that was just a miscue. No. This was all part of the, like, dude, like, the amount of just, like, bro, is unbelievable.
Yes.
Oh, man. It has shaped much of me as a hero and just in general is what I wanted in my life. But man, dude, Teen Titans got some life lessons, bro.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie.
Like, the only thing I don't love about Teen Titans is, like, that one episode where Cyborg gets thrust into the past and he has to, like, deal with, him. There's, like, 3 different episodes that are, like, I'm half robot, half human, but it's my human side that makes me the hero. Like, shut up. We don't need this 3 different times.
hey. It's a great lesson. But, man,
it's cool.
The thing I love about this show is I think it's one of the most balanced shows as far as, like, not only just character focus, but also just moments where I love this character. Because it really gives its time. But even when they're like, I love how even when they're in an arc or an episode that's clearly for one character, other characters get their moment to really shine and really show how cool they are. And I think that's really underrated for this show. Like, there's so many episodes where, like for example, there's like a Cyborg episode, like the one with his car, where he's really like, his car gets stolen. It's a part of him, so he takes it really personally. And then Raven, of all people, is like the person to like really like console him, talk him through it, and help him make a new. I mean, like that was so for me. That was like Raven seems like the last person who would care, and yet she's right there. Like that's such a big character moment, not just for like Cyborg gets a character arc for the episode, but Raven gets a big one for that moment, and it really adds in later. And it's like stuff like that just compounding continuously for seasons and seasons. Just these characters. I mean, you feel like you know all these people. You live with them. They're your friend. They're basically your family. It's so, and there's so many episodes that I'm like, this is the perfect episode. No, this is the perfect. Like, one of my favorite episodes is one of the first ones. Like, it's not the whole like final exam episode where they immediately get thrashed by the Hive OG3. And then there's this moment like Robin's missing, the team, they go home, and then the ops show up at their house to run the raid again. They get cooked again at their house, get kicked out of their own house. And now it's like all hope is lost. And Robin's like, nah, let's run it back. And when and man, dude, like, and something I love about the Teen Titans is, and something I love from the show is, you will get me the first time, maybe the second time, but when I get the run back, they will write stories about. Because dude, like when they come back, like they come back hard, bro. Like I love that so much about it because it's a great life lessons of A, don't give up. Do not give up. Like you can win it, and B, it's just like. I like how they establish early on the team is not perfect, but they are good at what they do because they are persistent, they keep going, and they will work until they can't. Like it is literally like whether it's saving the universe from Trigon or just getting your car back. Like it is the effort of never giving up. And that is the essence of a hero. Like you do not give up. There is always hope. There's always more to do. And like and I think that's something that I really like about the show because it's like, so often it's like, oh, the good guys always win. Man, the good guys in this show lose often.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because whether it's like Terra super powered up, kicks all your butts individually, and then you have to get the ultimate run back later or whatever, it's like it always comes back to we are a team that sticks together and one way or another we'll figure it out. And I really like that, whether it's Raven leading or whatever. Like it's just I really like it a lot, dude. It's just a great show. It's just the care, like it's so, and especially for the time too, because I mean, again, on paper, before this show came out, I don't think anyone would have known anyone that's not Robin in this cast at all.
Yeah.
And it's very quick to be like, hey, you might not know Starfire, but give me a second. You'll know her really well. Or you might not know Beast Boy, but yeah, you do. And like everyone is very real and relatable. They have really good story. There's really a lot of adult themes with like, literally like there's racism. There's like all types of, not controlling your powers and, shades of potentially could be sort of mental illness and things like that. And there's a lot of trauma to deal with. There's dealing with the past, abuse of family members and multiple aspects. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in this show that they handle it beautifully, as well as writing with building their characters, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Like you've mentioned a couple of times about shows being like the quintessential Saturday morning cartoon. This is the Saturday morning cartoon.
You weren't doing this on Saturday. What are you doing, man? Like
exactly.
This show's on, we're watching it. It doesn't matter what episode, doesn't matter what season. Like this show is a bop every single time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we made the right choice in the end.
I agree. I don't feel bad about this, but man, it was hard to get here. I ain't gonna
lie. Okay, so let us know down below if you agree or disagree with our choice. Let us know if you think we left any shows off of this list here. If there's any that we that didn't make it as far as you think, any that made it a little further than anything they should have, etc. Let us know all that down below. And with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care.